Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Podcast, the storm where social awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds convene to talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co host, the Nerdy Occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 4th anniversary of Podcast of the Storm. We began this here show on March 3rd of 2019, which means that the first week of March, whatever day in the first week of March that is a Sunday is our anniversary, and therefore we have been doing this show for 4 goddamn years.
And I am your host, /Time Lord Wannabe, the brainstorm of pop culture. How's everyone doing? Hello, Dragon Turtle, as he says, hello via, internet. I honestly think for the next few weeks we're just going to be playing catch up on things.
Yeah, because whenever we fuck off to do other things, the world is just like, I know we went 6 months without giving you anything more substantive to talk about, but here's all the things to talk about, derp. So today is going to be trailer centric, because there are a lot of trailers that we didn't have occasion to talk about until now. And I'm assuming Brainstormer's pulling up the thing.
Yes, sorry, I was setting things up.
Yeah.
Alright. This is something Dalton really wants to talk about, and I guess I do too. I'll be honest, I guess I'm taking somewhat of a neutral stance here for the time being, because I haven't seen this.
I did a reaction to it over on I Love Comics when it first dropped. I also have been keeping an eye on James Gunn ever since he got chosen to be the DC equivalent of Kevin Feige. And running theme that I've noticed with James, motherfucker cannot read the room to save his life.
Right. Avatar 2 review. Right, we did say fuck. I did see that. I thought we did, before we did February.
Yeah, no, I thought we already did the Avatar 2 review
in January.
In the end of January, I thought we did.
Yeah, we did the Avatar 2 review, Giant Joe.
Yeah.
I remember because I didn't use an official poster. I got a fan poster of the movie because I looked at the actual posters of Avatar 2 and
we've already done the Avatar 2 review.
General thoughts, it could have been better. Honestly,
it's exactly what I think we were both expecting, which is sad because we both are sort of neutral to negative on the whole Avatar concept. And James Cameron running his goddamn mouth is not helping.
So the weirdest. Okay, just a little sidetrack here, obviously, but just to kind of give Dragon Turtle up to speed on that. Um, we The weird thing is, it had a lot more story potential than the first Avatar, and there were some things I like in terms of characterization, but I think
The actual story relevant shit amounted to maybe 20 minutes of a 3 hour movie. So
yeah,
there was a lot of wasted time.
yeah, the pacing was super weird. That was always
It's like the movie only decided to have a plot in the last in literally the third act. It
yeah
was 2 acts of random sort of things just happening, and then it was 1 act of and now for the plot. And I
yeah
was like, wait, what? But anyway, we're on the topic of a different James running his goddamn mouth and refusing to read the room,
again.
namely James Gunn.
I haven't seen this, so I'm gonna go with this with like fresh eyes. Um, I guess yeah. So this is chapter one, Gods and Monsters, DC Studios. James, Mr. Gunn's address about it.
Which doing this kind of presentation was a good idea. Explaining what the fuck you're actually intending to do was a good idea. Granted, it's something Kevin Feige did starting in like I think phase two, but given that Kevin Feige was mostly doing it the correct way, it's nice to see DC finally get their shit at least nominally together.
Dolphin.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Uh, banana.
Batnana. Yes.
Oh, no, I just said banana. I don't think it. Okay, yeah, banana.
Hey everybody, I'm James Gunn. I'm the co-CEO of DC Studios. So as many of you know, DC has been disconnected in film and television for a long time. And it's one of, our jobs, mine and Peter's, is to come in and make sure the DCU is connected in film, television, gaming, and animation.
Okay, so because I feel like you do have some things to say that, Milton.
Mm-hmm. You go first.
Yeah, again, kind of being the neutral guy here. It's not a bad idea in theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Although that is interesting, I will grant you that. However, I could see like from practical standpoint, in terms of like the actual making of these things, it would be kind of difficult to do so. Just given like there's so many different people working on those types of projects, so it's hard to keep it cohesive.
Well, here's the other half of that, and this is where I'm going to pick up. Number one, Marvel has been trying this ever since the start of Phase 4, and it's kind of backfired on them, because people who watch the movies don't necessarily watch the shows, and people who watch the shows don't necessarily watch the movies, and therefore requiring basically making your required viewing multimedia, especially when certain stories are smaller scale and therefore less engaging for your audience than others, is probably going to backfire for one thing, and for another thing, it brings up the question of, especially given that, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, he's going to point out that Elseworlds are still going to be a thing in the new canon. So, given that most people are familiar with the TV shows being Elseworlds regardless, because, different scale equals different continuity, etc., that's gonna be a hard sell, I think, for a lot of people of seeing the shows and movies as interconnected. And again, there's the logistical stuff that Brainstormer mentioned, or the logistical stuff that I mentioned in relation to Marvel not being able to pull this off, which is, can you actually have a system with that many moving parts and have it work? Furthermore, Marvel struggled with doing this in Phase 4, and Marvel has a lot more consistent fan investment at the moment than DC does. This is the kind of thing you have to kind of build up to, in my opinion, and starting it off with basically copying Phase 4 without the lead up of the first three phases, or your equivalent of the first three phases, is also probably going to backfire, especially given that the DC fan base is divided as fuck right now, because you've got the Snyderverse fans, for whatever reason, being Snyderverse fans, wondering why all the Snyderverse stuff got 86. You've got the what I would call the transitionary phase, or the soft reboot, in between the end of the Snyderverse and now, where DC was slowly but surely righting the ship, and a lot of people liked that continuity, and that continuity is now scrapped. Then you've got the behind the scenes drama with people like Ezra Miller and Amber Heard, or on the other hand, the Henry Cavill situation. And then you've got, once again, you've got James Gunn on Twitter running his mouth and exasperating all of the above problems. So the DC fan base is fractured to begin with, and you're acting as though you've already earned their loyalty, their investment, and you really, really haven't. DC has been going on borrowed time since 2013, at least.
Right. So Granite Hall said some interesting things, and then we'll move on. I hate for people to take away the lesson of continuity equals bad. I agree. The problem is that all these things are needed to understand / care about what is going on, when they should have made a bit more redundancy in how self-contained they are. Like, throw people something if they never seen X movie / show.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Dragon Turtle. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that continuity is a problem, or that you can't make a multimedia franchise work. What I'm saying is you have to actually put in the work to build that up, because it requires more investment from your fan base, and more consistent investment from your fan base to pull that off. Also worth noting, again, is the number of moving parts. And DC being as the fact that DC has been operating on some degree or other of borrowed time since 2013, pretty much, you can't demand that kind of multiple moving parts fan investment from your fan base when you're on your lowest point. You have to do it when you're at your most your most dominant, or most your highest point,
Right.
like Marvel did.
Although they did have a bit of a rough patch with like Agents of Shield and the Netflix shows.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why it is, for better or worse, it's a good thing that Marvel did finally get their TV game together.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I think this is right? I think this is once more a symptom of DC trying to right the ship by copying Marvel, but what they're copying is Phase 4, and the problem with Phase 4 is even the parts of it that work are reliant on the previous investment from the first three phases still existing. And DC doesn't have that kind of investment to fall back on, is what right. I'm saying.
Moving on, or
yeah, moving on.
Okay, Batman. Oh, okay, so word to the wise to people: do not scarf down spaghetti before you have to do a live show.
Are you having food coma, or are you having indigestion, or both?
We'll see. I just didn't want to be eating when we were doing this, so. Okay, yeah, Batman.
That the characters are consistent, played by the same actors, and it works within one story. And if something is outside of that, like Matt Reeves' Batman, or Todd Phillips' Joker, or Teen Titans Go, that it is clearly labeled as DC Elseworlds, outside of the mainstream DCU continuity.
I still think it's a mistake not making Robert Pattinson's Batman the main universe Batman, and I really, really think it's a mistake not to play with the multiple Jokers thing and make Joaquin Phoenix the first Joker.
Right.
Teen Titans Go can die in the deepest black hole you can throw it into, as far as I'm concerned. But the other two I find somewhat worrying. Yes, I know Matt Reeves wants to exist off in a bubble by himself, but frankly, much as with Christopher Nolan, I find that to be mostly the result of the director's ego rather than anything that actually makes the slightest bit of sense. So frankly, if I were running DC or if I were running Warner Brothers, I would have sat Matt Reeves down and been straight up with him and said, I understand that you want it to be a solo series, but fuck you, it's not. It's an interconnected universe. Get used to it. That's what I would have done.
Yeah, I would also appeal to like the guy. The guy made some pretty high concept films before. All
Yeah, it's not like big scale sci-fi is beyond his scope.
I mean, I'm not even just talking about the Planet of the Apes trilogy. I'm also talking about he directed Cloverfield. I think that was like one of his first projects.
And more to the point, here's how I would have softened the blow a little bit. Hey Matt, we're rebooting the entire universe, but your stuff is staying in canon. So you get to help us build the whole universe from scratch. I think that would have probably appealed to him.
Right. Also, I mean, I don't disagree with the character consistency and stuff, sure. But right now he brought up the same actor thing, just seeing the whole backlash he was given about like Henry Cavill not returning as Superman.
That is a specter, and again, it's partially James Gunn's inability to read the room. He's acting like he's already won. He's acting like he has a high ground to lose. But the thing is, James, I understand for egotistical creative reasons why you would want to do that, but you don't have a high ground to lose, James. DC has been on borrowed time since 2013 for various different reasons and on various different metrics. So you have to come correct and be humble enough to ask, what does my audience want and how can I give it to them? And when you categorically see evidence that your audience does not like a direction you're going in, it's your job to address your fan base before your own personal concerns.
Right. Anyway, shall we?
Yeah, moving on.
Yeah, that's still the intro.
Bet Nana.
2 seconds. And... I think I'm good. I'm not entirely sure if it's a food coma or not because I just had one plate.
Well, spaghetti is mostly carbs, though, is why I mentioned it. Carbs have large amounts of carbs have a tendency to make people sleepy.
I also ate garlic bread and chicken patty things. So.
Anyway, Bet Nana.
Yeah, Bet Nana.
Now, Peter and I have gotten pretty lucky in terms of the 4 projects that are coming out over the next year. First, we have Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Shazam has always been off kind of in his own part of the DCU, so he connects very well. That moves directly into The Flash, a fantastic movie that I really love that resets the...
I mean, to be fair, it shouldn't really. The smart move would be to see that people like Shazam and to work him in. And also, I even contest conceptually the idea that Shazam is off in his own little corner because he connects to Aquaman, he connects to Black Adam, and he connects to Wonder Woman. So
I'm also gonna hold. I feel like we should hold off on talking about the Flash movie until our next topic.
Yeah. That's I was just gonna get to that. We will address the thing about there's a lot to say about the Flash. But the next topic is literally going to be a reaction to the Flash trailer, which
we'll say
will then...
what he just said honestly sounds more like a PR thing.
Yeah, he's not actually addressing the art. He's not actually addressing the actual fan base. He's He's essentially wishful thinking. He's trying to will people's excitement of the Flash into existence. And long story short, once again, you've failed to read the room, James. Nobody wants that.
Joey?
Yeah. Batman.
Entire DC universe. And then to move into Blue Beetle, a fantastic film about a kid who's a marvelous part of the DCU, and then into Aquaman 2, which leads directly into our next few projects, which I'm going to tell you about now. So Peter and I, along with a group of very talented writers, have started to...
James.
I'm sorry, I do want to bring this up. I've heard, I've seen a few things about Blue Beetle, like some art and stuff and behind the scenes things. It looks good, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of faith in Blue Beetle, and I especially love Jaime.
Right.
Granted, I would have loved if they had tied Hawkman, Blue Beetle, and Dr. Fate together, because classically in the comics they were kind of together, all being quasi-Egyptian in nature.
My thing is, I've heard very little, if nothing at all, about that movie. There's no...
Yeah, there appears to be no actual excitement for it. Other thing, and this is a massive nitpick, and I realize I'm being as petty as I can possibly be here, but James, for future reference, and this relates to my please for the love of God, learn to read the room criticism, you as the head of DC are basically categorically forbidden from using the word marvelous. I'm sorry, but that simply just is the word that you cannot use, because nobody can think of the word marvelous in a superhero context, especially in this kind of PR frame, without immediately going Marvel. So, for future reference, if ever your PR people hand you something with the word marvelous on it, change the word. You are for PR reasons best advised to never use the word marvelous when talking about DC. Never.
Right. I have something, but I will save it until we get into when you're talking about the other stuff, just because it's not really about the things itself. It's more so about this video, but I'll save it for later.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to say something. I don't want to put my foot in it.
Batman.
Yeah. There we go.
Map out an 8 to 10 year plan of what DC Studios will be in film, television, and gaming. This first chapter is called Gods and Monsters. Now, what I'm about to tell you, is a part of the first chapter. It's not the entire first chapter. The first project is Creature Commandos. Creature Commandos is an animated series. I've written it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to nitpick the shit out of this again, but put a pen in the whole Gods and Monsters thing, because I will rant about that if and when we get to the end of this, for reasons that will make more sense later. But also, James, my brother in creativity, why would you make this video about the first chapter of DC if your plans for the first chapter weren't finished?
I don't know if that's what he meant, to be fair.
But no, what I'm saying from a PR perspective, okay, I know it annoys people when you compare Marvel and DC, but it's very obvious that they are trying to do for DC what Kevin Feige did for Marvel. So I think it's a fair point. When Kevin Feige announces these sorts of announcement videos of where you get the phase 2 is going to be this, phase 3 is going to be this, phase 4, yada yada. When he does that, he gives the entire phase. He doesn't give part of a phase. He gives the entire phase. And there's a very good reason for that. Namely, if you can't tell us what you're selling us on, wait until you can, James. Please.
Right. I mean, if this is supposed to be actual design and style of the show, I'm
Yeah,
for it.
okay, on to Creature Commandos. I have absolutely no problem with the concept of Creature Commandos. It's exactly the kind of thing I want from James Gunn, namely, to hell with all the normie shit. Give me the weirdest, most off the wall, random. Give me the characters that don't normally get the spotlight, especially for DC, because frankly, DC has a problem where they seem to believe the only characters they can sell are the like
Mainline.
big the big three, the and even not even just the big three, but usually just Batman and Superman. Like there have been 4 or 5 different versions of Batman and Superman for a while, um, in recent years. So frankly, I want to see the larger DC universe. I want to see the characters that don't normally get spotlight,
I guess
just like Marvel does. Just like Marvel made the point of showing any character can be important if you give them a fair shake. I want to see DC try that. So this is a good idea both for James Gunn creatively and also for the DC universe in general to get the fuck away from
so.
the big two.
So I think my main concern is okay. So I want to check. Everyone can see the art shown in the video right now, right?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. Um, my biggest concern is if this is just promotion art, and the show itself is going to look like shit, because that tends to happen sometimes.
I'm not really concerned about that because one thing DC is very good at and has been very good at for about as long as they've been fucking up the live action continuity actually is animation. So I'm not worried about that. It's gonna be
Fair.
it's gonna be on HBO Max and it's gonna be a Warner Brothers in-house thing. So I'm not worried about that.
I'm sorry. That's just a general concern because I've been disappointed before by certain shows that have had great promotional stuff and just flop in the actual thing. So
I mean, yeah, there is potentially, I guess, that, but yeah, I have no problem with Creature Commandos. It's exactly what I want from a James Gunn DC universe.
okay. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you, Don. Like everything you said. Give me the weird. Give me the stuff that isn't usually covered often. The heroes and the villains that honestly could be big fucking players if used right.
Yeah, I mean, look at how successful Suicide Squad 2 was. I mean, the emotional center of that movie was goddamn Polka Dot Man, of all things.
I would argue Ratcatcher.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it was the two, and frankly, they could have done a. If they hadn't have died at the end, I would have loved to have seen a like buddy cop show between Polka Dot Man and Ratcatcher 2. That would have been cool. But
Yeah,
but my point is Marvel's biggest strength in phases 1 through 3 was they took characters that were not household names, with the exception of the Hulk. And
maybe Captain America.
no, Captain America wasn't a household name at the time.
Huh.
They definitely, and neither was Iron Man. But that's the thing, because Marvel didn't have access to their big gun characters because Fox had rights to the mutants. I think they also had the rights to Fantastic Four, and Sony had Spider-Man and Universal technically had rights to the Hulk, which is why they never did a solo Hulk movie, because they had to throw him in team movies or else they couldn't use him. But because the big characters, the characters that the normiest of the normies would know, were not available, they had to learn one of the most important lessons, I think, in the entire superhero genre, which is just because it's a character everyone knows doesn't make them inherently better than the obscure ones. Obscure characters are often obscure not because they deserve to be, but because no one is willing to give them a chance. But movies and TV are a democratizing medium where, your average person probably would never pick up a comic book, but your average person would also likely watch a movie. So that's always been a strength of Marvel, in that or I guess before the end of Phase 3, which is they give every character the same level of respect, regardless of how big and important they are. I feel like DC, I sort of ironically, was crippled by the fact that Warner Brothers bought DC wholesale, because all it's resulted in for decades has been a string of Batman, Superman, over and over and over. So I'm glad that at least some of the not just the obscure, because obscurity in and of itself isn't a good thing, but particularly because very often the obscure characters are obscure not because they're not representative of what comics are, but because they're too representative of what comics are for the normies to be interested. And I want comic book movies to resemble comic books. So there's that.
Right. Anyway, he just started talking about Creature Commandos.
Yeah, so Batnana.
Although, is it weird that I'm getting somewhat of a anime vibe from this art?
I think that might just be the concept art. I'm not sure if they're trying to.
I swear to God, they better keep in line with the concept art more, because that is always a fucking issue.
Yeah, it bothers me when the concept art is always like dozens of times better than the actual end result.
Have you seen some concept art where, like, for Age of Ultron, where they literally had a scene created where all the Ultron bots create this massive Ultron to attack the flying heroes like Thor and Iron Man?
Yeah, Doctor Strange was the same way. The concept art actually was like the comics, and then the movie was the movie, and it was disappointing.
Anyway, yeah.
But yeah, Batnana.
Yeah.
Long story short, Creature Commandos is a good thing.
Yeah.
And more of what I would like to see from James Gunn. Batnana.
I've written all the episodes. Something we're going to do that's a little bit different at DC is we're going to have characters move into animation, out of animation, usually having the same actor play their voice as who plays them in live action. The next project up is Waller. This is a story of Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis. Viola Davis is going to...
So, wait, I do want to say this. James Gunn is not, he's not the first one to do that, because the Arrowverse actually did that first in terms of bringing a character from animation to live action with Vixen, because they did that short web series of Vixen in animation first and brought her into the show proper for like cameos and stuff.
And I mean, DC writ large has been doing that with Matt Ryan's Constantine for years now.
Yeah,
he's been bouncing between animation and live action. But anyway, onto Waller. This is where I begin to. This I think was where my brain immediately start. This is where my brain concocted the he doesn't know how to read the room theory from. Because here's the thing.
Right.
Huh?
She's not a god or a monster. Well,
okay. There's that, but that's neither here nor there for this particular microsecond. What I mean is Viola Davis is staying, and that's a problem. That's a massive problem when you consider the fan reaction to things like Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot. If you're going to, your argument against Henry Cavill, James, was we need to blank slate things. Well, if you need to blank slate things, then that means also 86ing Viola Davis and Amanda Waller. And it's not even the concept of a Waller series that pisses me off. It's a Waller series in continuity with Viola Davis's version of Amanda Waller. Because you could literally recast Amanda Waller and then do a Waller series, and I wouldn't have a problem with it, because I've always loved Amanda Waller. She's one of my favorite minor DC characters. But for one thing, many people complained about Viola Davis's version of Amanda Waller because she's nothing like she is in the comics. For one thing, unlike all the male actors who actually had to get in shape for their roles, Viola Davis never put on weight for Amanda Waller. And she's Amanda the Waller, which means not only if you were going with Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, should she have actually put on weight for the character? Just like every other actor in Hollywood when they play a role that's physically demanding. But also, this would have been a perfect chance to give a plus-size actor an opportunity to play a major character. Because Amanda Waller is actually supposed to be plus-sized. She's a little bit like a female version of the Kingpin. Yeah, she's plus-sized, but it's all muscle. It's all actual power instead of
I'm sorry. I want to ask a question first. How is Viola Davis's Amanda Waller, besides like the physical stuff? How is she not Amanda Waller from the comics, or well, character-wise?
She's not a puppet master, although that's mostly because the writing doesn't ever make her one. She doesn't ever command a presence on screen or make a point to make sure that she's the center of attention in any given room, which is key to Amanda Waller's character. But irregardless, either there are two solutions to this canard, James. You either could have insisted that Viola Davis actually put on weight this time to differentiate her from her previous iteration, which probably would have gone over well with the fan base because people have been asking since she was cast, why the fuck didn't she put on weight for this character? I know I was certainly asking that, and I've been waiting for decades. See, what I had originally thought was she's going to start skinny and become plus size later as her character progresses. But given that the character can't progress in a universe without continuity, that was 86 about 5 Ways from Sunday. But the other point being, if you don't want to keep Henry Cavill, you categorically cannot keep Viola Davis. Either the slate gets cleaned for everyone, or you grovel back to Henry Cavill and beg him to be Superman again. Those are your only options to actually maintain the integrity with any sort of integrity with the fan base. This is going to piss everyone off. The fact that Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot get 86, but Ezra Miller, Amber Heard, and Viola Davis all stay for some reason. And I know the actual out of universe reason for this. I know why he made this choice. The reason why he made this choice is because Viola Davis was in his Suicide Squad and his Peacemaker, and he wants to keep everything that he was directly involved with in canon. But your argument, James, was blank slate when people challenged you on the Henry Cavill thing. So either everyone is subject to the whim of the blank slate, or no one is. Or you're being an arbitrary git who's going to go down in history as one of the worst managers of a franchise ever, which appears to be where we are.
Right. Okay, so Ventrell said, wait, Amanda Waller is a minor character? I thought she was pretty significant. She's basically the face of the government's response to the existence of superpowers.
Well, yeah, she's basically Nick Fury meets the Kingpin, but gender flipped. That's basically who Amanda Waller is. But yeah, she is a minor character.
I guess how you define major and minor is also.
I guess it. But most people consider her a fan favorite minor character.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I say that. But yeah. Long story short, you could have done a Waller series with a recast Amanda Waller, and I don't think anyone would care. Or you could have kept Henry Cavill and all the other characters that people liked, and I don't think anyone would care. But you, James, are trying to have it both ways, and it's once again a sign that you don't seem to know how to deal with your own fan base, which is not a good sign.
Anyway. Although, again, I will say it is weird that this is part of the Gods and Monsters chapter.
Well, I was gonna save that until the end, but yes, while we're on the topic, while we're on the topic of the chapter being called Gods and Monsters, granted.
She is capable of being a monster. Like, holy.
No, but that's not where I was going. Granted, Gods and Monsters is an actual storyline. So even though when you say Gods and Monsters to me, especially when it's James Gunn, I'm expecting supernatural characters or mythological characters, of which there are plenty in
DC.
DC. Like you could have done a Spectre movie, you could have actually kept some aspects of the JSA in continuity and done that. You could have done um, a Parallax movie or a Green Lantern movie that focuses on Parallax. You could have done there's any number of characters you could have played with that fit the mold of Gods and Monsters. And while that's where my brain goes, I understand that even the more normie among comic book fans are probably going to think of the storyline Gods and Monsters before they think of that. So even then, this has nothing to do with the storyline either. So whether you're talking about the literal translation of Gods and Monsters, i.e., supernatural or mythological entities and or obscure mystical characters and so forth, if even whether you're talking about that or you're talking about the actual storyline that's titled Gods and Monsters, this has nothing to do with anything.
When I think of Gods and Monsters, and when you mean storyline, do you mean the Bruce Timm Elseworlds thing? Because that's where my mind goes every time I hear Gods and Monsters relating to DC.
I think that's the one, but in general, I only mention the storyline because I know that's probably where most people go when they hear Gods and Monsters in relation to DC. They don't go the literal route that my brain goes of, okay, so let's do the characters that are monsters, let's do the characters that are supernatural in nature and have ties to mythology and gods. Okay. They go the storyline. But so, either way, whether you're talking about the storyline or you're talking about the literal translation of there are a fuck ton of mythological, monstrous, or supernatural characters in DC we can do. This has nothing to do with anything.
Right. I mean, to be fair, I'm kind of in that middle because I get what you're saying, and also to be fair, I think the Gods and Monsters universe, like Justice League Gods and Monsters. I personally think that is one of those like worlds that is very untapped potential.
Yeah, but which might be why he called it that. But this is the thing again: failure to read the room. Either deliver on the storyline titled Gods and Monsters, which is probably what most normies are going to want, or because you're James Gunn and you're known for, and that's the other thing. Especially because it's James Gunn, and especially because he's known for doing the weird, cosmic, over-the-top characters. I would expect that if he did a Gods and Monsters storyline, it would be focused around the mystical, monstrous, or supernatural characters in DC, of which there are a fuck ton. But in this case, we have neither. We have neither the literal translation of the phrase Gods and Monsters, which is, mythological, monstrous, supernatural, etc. characters, or the storyline entitled Gods and Monsters. We have neither of these things. And so I'm left wondering, why did you call it Gods and Monsters if you're not going to provide either Gods and Monsters the storyline or characters who are gods and monsters? Which, by the way, that would be a smart way of doing DC, because one of the things that DC has over Marvel is they lean a lot more into the classical mythology and mysticism than Marvel does.
Okay, so sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but
moving on.
Well, Giant Troll said something here. Honestly, I'm mostly neutral on the Marvel versus DC thing, but I will give DC one thing. It does seem like non-supers, kind of people like Batman and supers for this, actually seem to do more in DC.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I would sort of actually lean in the other direction, because Marvel constantly being focused on being the world outside your window does seem to have more characters that are non-supers, whereas DC being the coke of the comic book genre or the comic book medium does lean more into the mythological connections.
So I'm just gonna, because I feel like this is gonna be a huge debate, and we just have a lot more stuff, and this is only first thing. So, if you guys want, like I say, if you guys want to have this conversation, like some,
No, we don't have to. He said that it's based on what little he's seen.
okay,
Which I not to invalidate you in any way, Dragon Troll, but I think that might be a selection bias because it's sort of baked into both universes that you're wrong. Not to be mean.
anyway, we gotta move on.
Yeah. Long story short, this Waller this version of Waller is a bad sign for DC moving forward.
What I meant was more that they matter more in civilization, government agencies, court orders, etc. End up being a bigger factor from what I've seen.
Oh, okay, yeah. Fair play, I suppose. Again, based on your definition, I don't organizations and orders and so forth. Yeah, probably have more impact on DC. Because I mean, even just using Waller as the example, she is basically the villainous counterpart to Batman, but that's neither here nor there.
Anyway, like I said, we do got in line because we got a lot more things.
We have to boogie because there's a lot of things to do here.
Yeah.
Batnana.
To team up with members of Team Peacemaker, and this is a story that's been created by Crystal Henry, who did Watchmen, and Jeremy Carver, who created the Doom Patrol. It is a fantastic story that's out of this world, and I can't wait for people to see it. Okay, next up is the big one, the true beginning of the DCU.
Okay, Watchmen the comic or Watchmen the show? Because
I think he said he said Watchmen, and it was. I think it could have been. I think it's the show.
That's a terrible sign. Watchmen the show was David Lindelof shitting all over comics and making them a political diatribe.
I never watched it, to be honest.
You were correct not to. David Lindelof's Watchmen show is fucking horrible.
Right. I don't really have anything else to say, so shall we?
Yeah.
I think I might have something more to say about this one.
Yeah, Batnana.
Actually, let me back it up a bit, just so
he can finish his thing. Yeah.
Okay. Next up is the big one, the true beginning of the DCU. This is called Superman Legacy. This is being written by me. I'm in the middle of it. I'm having a great time doing it. And Superman will be released into theaters July 11th, 2025. Okay, the next thing is a big premiere HBO television series.
Okay.
So I think we covered it when we first talked. Well, like back in January, we talked a little bit about it before like this was released. About the whole Henry Cavill thing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think it sucks just because he's a. To read,
he never got the chance to play the character.
Right, and so okay, so it sucks that they're doing this because it honestly, I don't want to imply anything, but it does feel like kind of a middle finger to Henry Cavill that they're already working on a new Superman movie without letting him, at least, if anything, go out with a love letter to the character.
He should have at least been in the Flash movie,
Yeah.
but he isn't.
Um,
Anyway,
Well, we'll get to that. But like one more thing. Sorry.
go ahead.
And this is kind of reiterating a brief discussion Dalton and I had on Thursday when we hung out, where he mentioned this. Naming it Superman Legacy as like the first like new Superman movie is completely ass backwards, because that seems more like, and reiterate and like just kind of saying what you said, Dalton. It sounds more like for a sequel.
Yeah, okay. And now here's door number 2, where I'm actually going to be much more aggressive with this point, because here's the thing. I understand that not everything is going to go off without a hitch. I understand that it's unrealistic to expect perfect self-awareness on the part of people who are constantly behind the scenes and kind of in their own little creative bubble. But stuff like this is comically counterproductive and stupid. For one thing, this is a Superman reboot, which means this is a version of the character that has no legacy to speak of. So even in universe, that makes no goddamn sense. But here's the other thing. Think of any movie that has the word legacy in it. Tron Legacy, Craft Legacy,
Jupiter's Legacy.
Not material to my point.
Sorry,
But
I was trying to think of a third one for you. That's what came.
Think of anything you can think of that has the word legacy in it. It either is a continuation of a pre-existing IP, or it is a direct sequel to a pre-existing IP. Because here's the thing. First movies, first entries in franchises are about building a legacy. You can't name something a legacy when it has none. Especially when you did a very controversial recasting and reshuffling of the universe in between A and B. Not only does this feel just nonsensical as its own decision, naming the first in a series legacy is already counterproductive and counterintuitive to begin with. But given the controversial reshuffling and recasting of Henry Cavill and the nuking of everything that could have been described as his legacy, and instead doing a reboot, it feels like a directly flippant middle finger. I don't think that it's a directly flippant middle finger, or at least I don't think it's entirely that. Do I think that there's some person in, the Warner Brothers executive suite who might actually have done that on purpose? Sure, maybe. But I think this is yet another case of never attribute to malice what can be attributed to incompetence. It is utterly incompetent of you, James, to have not understood why people would be pissed off by the concept of a movie that is the first in a series and is a replacement for the Henry Cavill continuity, calling it legacy, therefore implying a already pre-existing legacy on a character that's going through an origin story, is so many levels of incompetent and stupid that I can't begin to think why you would do it. Why wouldn't you just call it Superman? Or why wouldn't you just call it The Superman or Golden Age Superman? That would have been another one that would have worked fine.
Right.
But
I do have something also. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think also, again, kind of relating it back to the title of this chapter of the universe, right? Gods and monsters. And kind of speaking as more of a, I guess, ironically, because I don't particularly give too much of a shit about PR. Well, okay, that's not entirely true. But I don't have much experience in that field. But advertising-wise, it doesn't make sense to have a Superman, and this is my own personal opinion on this, right? It doesn't make too much sense with Superman to put him in here. And again, if you want to do the weird and start off with like the obscure stuff, I would say hold Superman back. Even if you are going to recast Henry Cavill, right? Hold because yeah, just hold off on doing another Superman movie because one, obviously, with the whole backlash of like, I guess firing Henry Cavill or letting him go would be the more appropriate way.
The 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 screwing over of Henry Cavill. Let's not beat around the bush. You screwed him over. Let's not
But
be pretentious about it.
but yeah, like it does feel like you said, a very like it's very incompetent just on the fact for like two main reasons. One, just because of again the whole thing with Henry Cavill, this is not going to help the image. And two, it doesn't make too much sense to put this guy in this chapter.
A thing you're calling Gods and Monsters.
Yeah.
Unless, this is, I will play devil's advocate for like 2 seconds, and then I will immediately go back to bashing it. They could, if you squint, make this work if they go with the whole super god thing.
Oh.
Of Superman being a god in the metaphorical sense. But as you can plainly hear by my co-host's exasperated sigh, no Superman fan would prefer that.
No real Superman fan, at least.
But yeah, number one, the only way this can work is if you play with the whole Superman is a god among men herder derp thing, and that's not what people want from a Superman movie. Period. Point number two, and to further what Brainstorm was saying, doing a Superman reboot this soon at all is skeptical, is a cause for skepticism in and of itself. But calling it Superman Legacy, therefore implying a legacy of a character that's getting an origin story, which is inherently done by itself, but also in the aftermath of the public disgracing of Henry Cavill, it feels deliberately spiteful against your own fan base. The smarter thing to do would be to ignore the mainstream characters entirely until you have the wider DC universe established. For one thing, it would be good just on the face of it because Superman and Batman have been overused already. So putting them on the back burner for a while until you've gotten a stable universe is not a bad idea in and of itself. Point number two, it gives your fan base time to recoalesce and to stop being angry at you over the Henry Cavill thing. And point number three, even if you wanted to do a Superman movie towards the beginning of your new phase, you could have done it in a much more tactful way simply by just referring to it as Superman, or just referring to it as Golden Age Superman, or hell, All-Star Superman would have been an amazing title for a new, hopefully more optimistic, fresher reboot of this. But by calling it Superman Legacy, you're implying both a continuity that doesn't exist, which is already bad, but also basically deliberately spiting the pre-existence of the Henry Cavill continuity, which people liked and are mad at you for getting rid of. It's unself-aware. It's either unself-aware and incompetent to a frankly cartoonish and absurd degree, or it's actively spiting your audience by teasing them with "Tee-hee, we're going to call our new Superman movie Superman Legacy," even though we are literally nuking everything that previously was established about Superman in this universe. Tee-hee.
Okay. Also, hello, Coronaut. Good to see you. James Gunn is not the insert modern appropriate insult to lead new DC universe. Broken word over Cavill and the murder of the Guardians of the Galaxy as characters. No, he should have been given a movie version, Legends of Tomorrow.
Honestly, I don't mind him controlling the DC universe. What I mind is that
It's the lack of
okay,
self.
well, there's that, but there's also, and I can't believe it took me this long to get to this point because I was going to mention this earlier and I didn't. But just like earlier when we were reacting to Creature Commandos and saying how that's the kind of stuff we want from James Gunn,
Mhm.
by that same token, it feels sort of disingenuous to wind up halfway between the weird, sincerely comic booky stuff that James Gunn is known for, and to randomly also have the normiest of the normie ones
Right.
interspersed throughout.
Um,
What you should have done is either you should have done the most normal ones first, which is what most people probably would have done, and then built up to the weird ones, which I wouldn't have liked because that's not what I want from my comic book movies. Or you should have you should have essentially doubled down on James Gunn's personal brand and done all the weird ones first and waited to introduce the normal ones later. But
um,
but instead, what you have is this kind of stuck halfway in between um, two opposite extremes and pleasing nobody thing, where you have a little bit of the weird stuff we go to James Gunn for, and then you have interspersed the most normal ones that, frankly, you should have just avoided doing for a while.
okay. Ugh. So, Giant Turtle, what is the difference between the God among men and the world of cardboard thing for Superman?
Because I'm going to answer that with probably my favorite Superman, probably my favorite quote about Superman, which comes from the DC animated universe. Um, it comes from an episode of Superman the animated series called Hand of Fate, where an eldritch god named Karkul, which is dissimilar from the Karkul from the comics, but that's neither here nor there, is summoned to Earth, and of course, because it's in the middle of Metropolis, Superman tries to fight it. And Karkul responds to Superman fighting him with the phrase, "You are strong for a mortal, but a mortal is all you are." That's the difference. Superman is not, for one thing, Superman doesn't even have the powers you would normally associate with a god. He's not a reality bender. He doesn't manipulate, the basic energy of existence. He
Uh,
doesn't he
Elemental.
doesn't he doesn't have any elemental powers. He doesn't have any mental or energetic or telepathic powers. So even just going off of what would be the most reasonable definition of a god, he's not that. And to for you know to add insult to injury, there are actual gods in the DC universe. There are there are mystical, cosmic, and supernatural beings that actually do have the power to warp reality, control concepts, manipulate the fabric of existence, etc. So he's not even a god by any reasonable standard within his own universe. And for another thing, his name is what? Superman. Man is very important. He's not a god. He is simply the most he's the most platonically perfect, to use a philosophical term, version of a he's a human with all the feats unlocked, but that's not the same as a god.
I do also have to. I think also, for me, the problem I have with the whole super god thing, um, this is just my personal thing, is, to be fair, I hate the deification of superheroes.
Yeah,
I think it's just it takes away kind of the inherent, like,
uniqueness of them.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I will add my 2 cents to that as well because I also hate the stupid superheroes or modern mythology derp point. Because for one thing, no, they're not, because most of what we call mythology are actually just the religions of other cultures,
uh,
i.e., i.e., all the gods and all the different forms of mythology we have were once things people actually believed, and at no point did people actually believe in the existence of these characters. And for another thing, it implies that the value of comics is purely derivative, i.e., you're only valuable as the shadow, as the modern ripoff of mythology.
Right.
And I don't think that. I
I-
think I think the value of comics is unique to comics, and if you actually look at the history of comics, it's not even derivative of mythology. It's derivative of folklore and pulp novels, if anything.
I actually will also kind of add to that. I will say, if anything, they are more the modern equivalent of the old epics written in the past. By that, what I mean is, and I'm not saying that to like downplay their, like they're unique in their own way. Obviously, like comics, like they have their own standing within literature. I'm not saying they don't, right? I'm just saying if we actually want to compare this, right? They're more closer to like the epic tales of old, not mythology or those religions or anything like that, but more like the stories of like Gilgamesh, Beowulf.
Well, okay, that's not even a good example. I would go a slightly bit more modern and say they're the equivalent of folk heroes, like John Henry, Johnny Appleseed, Paul Bunyan.
Yeah, that's fair. That's completely fair. My point, obviously, is that these are stories of like these characters, these people that get wrapped up in these like grand things and do these amazing feats by like by their own will, their own sweat, their blood. That's
Yeah, which is why I threw in the Johnny Appleseed, John Henry sort of thing.
yeah.
But
Okay.
but once to sort of cycle back to something I mentioned earlier when I was rebutting the super god point, it doesn't even make sense to call superheroes modern mythology, because that also, in addition to thereby making superhero comics entirely derivative and not having any unique value that they bring of their own volition, in addition to that sort of meta point, there's also the point that if superheroes were modern mythology, one would think they would replace the old mythology, which they don't.
I mean, there is the new gods.
I mean, I'm not talking about in universe. I'm talking about functionalistically.
I was trying to make a joke. I was trying to make a joke.
I know, but point, but that is actually a good point, which I will add to this later. But in order for them to be the new version of mythology, they would have to replace the pre-existing mythology, and they don't. We still teach Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology and Norse mythology and everything. Also, once again, gods and supernatural beings actually exist in these characters' universes, i.e., not only do they not replace older classical mythology, very often they incorporate it. Like Dream of the Endless is Oneros from Greek mythology. Thor is Thor. Hercules is Hercules. So even if you wanted to squint and make this my superheroes are modern mythology point, and like the point I've often seen from people is Superman is basically an XP of Hercules. Well, if you're gonna make that claim, you're gonna have to explain the fuck to me why Hercules and Superman exist separately in the DC universe.
Anyway, Don, I do think we've kind of gone on a bit. So
yeah, we've got to move on. Bet Nana.
Yeah, Batman.
Called Lanterns. This is a story of a couple of Green Lanterns, John Stewart and Hal Jordan, and we have a few other lanterns peppered in there, but this is really a terrestrial-based TV show, which is almost like True Detective, with a couple of Green Lanterns who are space cops watching over Precinct Earth. In it, they discover...
Okay, I have a couple of issues with this. Number one, why the fuck isn't this a movie or a series of movies?
I mean, okay, so I can not playing devil's advocate here. Why not have a show that runs congruently with a movie series of Green Lantern?
Yeah, that would have also worked. Other point though, Why the fuck would you make Green Lantern terrestrial based?
I mean, if you did it set on another alien world, maybe.
Well, okay, not even that, but the point of the Green Lantern Corps, at least the Silver Age and on up Green Lantern Corps, not speaking to Alan Scott, which I would love to see an actual adaptation of Alan Scott one of these days. But that's I realize that ship sailed around the same time that they decanonized the JSA in the new universe, or whatever. But the version of Green Lantern that everyone knows and loves is a cosmic, semi-mystical space opera about the emotional spectrum and the guardians of the universe and the like quasi eldritch entities that inhabit the center of the Green Lantern Corps and so on and so forth, like Parallax and Larfleeze and so on and Necron and those guys. So why the hell would you take something that is inherently based in the cosmic realm and or the semi-metaphysical realm, because the emotional spectrum and all that business, and make it a terrestrial cop show?
Yeah,
I'm not saying you couldn't do a Green Lantern cop show, but it should be a cosmic cop show.
I think this art is from the Earth 1 continuity where they did the green. Not, and I'm talking like those comics that got released a while ago. Like they kind of gave them more. They were going different approaches in terms of other of certain heroes within the DC universe. Where like Green Lantern is more like Alien, like Ridley Scott's Alien.
Yeah, but you could still do the like buddy cop scenario with a cosmic scale. Basically turn the Green Lantern Corps members into members of Starfleet from Star Trek. Have them go from planet to planet to planet, doing beat cop stuff, but on a cosmic scale. And then in the background, you could build the larger cosmic metaphysical stuff, like the power batteries and so on. So which I could see James Gunn actually doing a cosmic cop show where they go from planet to planet to planet and so on. So maybe that is what they'll do, and I'm just being a dick. But either way,
the way it was described is not.
Yeah, the way it's described makes no goddamn sense because it's literally taking characters that are not Earthbound and binding them to Earth for no goddamn reason.
I mean, granted, there should be well, there's a whole sector. It's not just Earth, actually. So.
Right, but yeah, it's obviously Hal Jordan and John Stewart are going to be the Green Lanterns of Earth. That would be the case regardless. But I'm saying
this is a little side tangent for me. Please finish your point, Bob.
Yeah, but obviously the Green Lanterns we're following are going to be the Earth sector Green Lantern. But they shouldn't be bound to Earth unless you're actually going to depower them and take away their rings. Which I could also that's the only way I could think to make this work, is if for some reason their rings were going haywire and they couldn't get off planet. But even then, that's a really stupid way to introduce a Green Lantern franchise. If you did the Green Lantern movies first, and then this was like a spin-off where they were depowered and stuck on Earth for a while, that would make sense. But starting with we're having them stuck on Earth and basically turning it into a space version of G versus E, if anyone remembers that show, that doesn't make any goddamn sense, and it misses the point of the characters entirely.
Something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, this is a weird side tangent, but anyone notice that there are a lot of Earth human Green Lanterns in DC?
Yeah, there are too goddamn many Green Lanterns per our sector for some reason. Yeah, I know.
So my issue is, you have this entire Green Lantern Corps, like you could literally just focus on another alien and stuff. Again, it's just me. Maybe
doing the fall of Sinestro as a series would have been cool.
Yeah.
Like have him actually slowly go insane and take over his planet.
Okay, I think you're still writing a comment, so I'm not gonna. I'll read that when you're done. If you're done with that comment, Giant Joe. Okay, there we go. Okay. Makes me wonder what they're going to do with the Green Lantern Corps. A lantern's still a force to be reckoned with, being able to police multiple galaxies or whatever. I'm fine with there being so many human Green Lanterns, but half the universal threats are involved with Earth somehow. Yeah.
Well, the reason is because in Marvel and DC both, Earth is like the keystone to the rest of the universe for some reason. And the reason fluctuates with the continuity. That's why I say for some reason. It's explained, but it changes.
I mean,
my issue.
I'm just sorry. I was just like, again, my issue again is just like, it's a whole galactic police force. And it has been proven that people can empathize and humanize other creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do a solo series based on it. I would love to see a series around like Kilowog, because apparently he has a really fucking cool backstory.
Yeah, Kilowog would have been my choice too, but that's like have him be Hal Jordan's partner, basically, and have them basically buddy cop throughout the universe.
Right.
That would have been cool. But more to the thing about why are there so many human Green Lanterns. The issue is, classically, it's supposed to be one Green Lantern per star system, per sector. And they changed that without actually, like, that's been the canon for years, and the issue is they never even so much as retconned it. They never explained why there are 3 or 4 different Earth Green Lanterns while everyone else only gets one. And I would be okay with it if they just explained why. For example, what if instead of each sector only having one Green Lantern, the Guardians decide that each Green Lantern or each sector should have a team of Green Lanterns or a squadron of Green Lanterns? That actually would make some kind of sense. And it would explain why Earth gets so many goddamn Green Lanterns. But my issue is in the existing continuity, every sector only gets one Green Lantern. And then Earth, for some reason, has 4 or 5.
Either your idea or the idea I think honestly would make more sense if the Green Lantern, each Green Lantern that gets the ring is assigned to the sector of the last Green Lantern who died, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty normal for police, that they technically don't pull. Usually,
yeah, we have X number of sectors to cover and only so many rings. So you got a new one. You fill the gap of this other guy that just died.
Okay, so I'll read these.
Which brings up the question of why didn't Hal take over the sector of
Evan Sor?
Thank you. I couldn't think of his name. Evan Sor.
No, I think Evan Sor's sector was where Earth is as well.
Which, if that's the case, I want to see Evan Sor's planet then, because we never really do, to the best of my knowledge, ever see Evan Sor's actual home world.
Okay. Honestly, I somewhat doubt that. I think with most normies selling them on anything sci-fi/fantasy, or even historical/too foreign, and they will check it. They will check out.
A lot of people's favorite Star Wars character is Yoda. That's all I'm saying.
By the way, is the size of a sector even defined in DC? That's a good question.
It might be in some Green Lantern comics, but I am unfamiliar with it.
Anyway,
to the best of my knowledge, it's never focused on.
Anyway,
so if it's ever defined, it's an obscure piece of lore that I haven't run across.
Anyway, we
continue.
Yeah, Batnana.
Over a terrifying mystery that ties into our larger story of the DCU. Next is a big movie called The Authority. The Authority is a passion project of mine. It's based on the marvelous Wildstorm characters we are now bringing into the DCU and will interact with all of our primary DCU characters.
So you're ripping off The Boys then?
No, the Authority. Honestly, the Authority did The Boys better than The Boys.
Right, but what I mean in terms of why this particular thing is, I am almost 100% certain that someone at Warner Brothers saw how successful The Boys was, and then James Gunn was like, we have something that could basically be that in the form of The Authority, and what I'm saying is, I can't see a version of The Authority that doesn't at least tangentially copy the same style as The Boys, in the same way that Thor Ragnarok kind of copied the Guardian style and so on.
And that's fair. I'm not opposed to this, mainly because Bruce Timm wanted to do an Authority animated movie, but he couldn't really get the rights to do so, so he did Justice League Gods and Monsters. So that's kind of, and I've done some research on the Authority, and they're really cool. But
I don't mind getting an Authority movie. In fact, I really like the idea of getting an Authority movie.
But I think you and I were going to build up to this, which is, again, it doesn't make sense for this chapter given the title and stuff.
Maybe given what you just pointed out, it does make a little sense, because if they're leaning more into the storyline rather than the concept. As in, they're leaning more into adapting the Gods and Monsters storyline rather than doing what I would prefer, which is a more straightforward version of that, where James Gunn does his James Gunn thing and gives us a bunch of divine or godly or monstrous, supernatural, obscure characters. So maybe because there is that connection between the Authority and the Gods and Monsters storyline, it could potentially work.
Right.
I just think it's kind of silly that they're very, like, from a behind the scenes standpoint, it's very obvious that they're ripping off The Boys. Granted, the Authority did it first, but The Boys is the one that got that. The Authority did the concept first, and the Authority did the concept better, but The Boys got there first, and it's very obvious that DC is trying to basically ride The Boys' conceptual coattails.
Right. That's fair. I think it depends on how you handle it, because it could be better than The Boys. Honestly, the concept itself is better than The Boys.
No, it's probably going to be better than The Boys, but I will eat my hat if it isn't at least tangentially a ripoff of it.
But again, my main issue again is, I guess what you said, but I doubt that's what they're doing. Again, it just technically doesn't make sense given the title of this chapter of what they're doing.
Yeah, where's the Spectre movie? Where's the Dr. Fate movie? Where's the Jason Blood Etrigan movie?
Maybe I'm stretching on that one. Trenchcoat Brigade.
They could work, although that would, in my opinion, that would be a little bit stretched because they are mostly humanoids. But you could do Sentinels of Magic, and that would probably fit too.
Yeah,
but point being, there are a lot of characters that are tied into magic, mysticism, mythology, monstrousness. You could even do a Doom Patrol movie, and if it was somehow in continuity with the Doom Patrol series, everyone would love you.
Yeah, I think its 4th season came out not too long ago.
Yeah, and I'm optimistic because it didn't get canceled along with everything else. So
and I mentioned this before, like when we covered the trailer for season 4. But I kind of do have an issue with the Doom Patrol series, not the content itself, because it's actually really good.
The Doom Patrol series is probably the best thing DC has made since 2013.
I guess my issue is it's not. It is effectively a long, elongated therapy session for the characters, and I'm not opposed to that because it's really well done.
Yeah, and it's also exactly the kind of storytelling that James Gunn likes to do. So
right, but the thing is, is they never really do superheroics as much. You know? And the thing about the Doom Patrol is that they are superhero. They're broken people, but they're also superheroes. They kind of did it before, like X-Men or
Dragon Turtle, that happens, but it's far from the standard. And frankly, most of the time when that happens, people get annoyed with it. So I would avoid doing that like the goddamn plague. If I were DC. But
yeah.
also something else worth talking about here. Something else worth talking about here. I'm pretty sure, especially given the order that these movies came in, that they're setting up a Superman versus the Authority movie.
That
because why the hell would you?
Right, but I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but it's interesting. I just don't know if they're gonna. It might flounder it a bit, just because like
my question is, what are they going to do if Superman Legacy bombs? Because especially given everything that's going on with DC right now.
Right.
My thinking is all of the interesting, cool James Gunnish ideas are probably going to be successful. Like Creature Commandos is probably going to be successful. The Authority is probably going to be successful. Swamp Thing, although we haven't gotten to Swamp Thing yet, is going to be successful. But all the normal ones are probably going to bomb because of the fan base hating DC's guts for what they've done.
Right.
Which frankly for me will be a good thing if the normal ones end up bombing and the weird ones end up succeeding, that will incentivize DC to finally get off their ass and give me the weird ones I want. But but that's neither here nor there. I just think it's funny that they're very transparently setting up a crossover between Superman and the Authority, and if Superman bombs, that's probably going to require them to restructure the thing again.
Right. Anyway. Shall we?
Yeah. That Nana.
Authority are a group of superheroes who think the world is broken and they want to fix it by any means necessary. I think it's a very different look at superheroes. We're doing a television series called Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost is the story of Paradise Island, usually known as Themyscira, which is the birthplace of Wonder Woman. It's almost like Game.
James, not for nothing, but okay. I'm of two minds on this because number one, I don't think that's what James Gunn actually believes. That sounds like a PR statement to hell and back. Because there is absolutely no way James Gunn, the lover of all things obscure and nerdy in comics, could not know that the idea of deconstructing a superhero team that's dark and edgy is not new. And here's the other thing. It's not even new from an adaptation standpoint. The two biggest and most influential, most successful superhero things right now are The Boys and Invincible. So, James, and lest we forget, this whole DC rigmarole got started with Zack Snyder adapting Death of Superman and Dark Knight Strikes, or Dark Knight Returns. I almost said Dark Knight Strikes again. But yeah.
So
James, there is absolutely no way you can think that's a new way to take superheroes.
Right.
Hell, your own brother was the director of Brightburn, and you were a producer on it. So you couldn't. I'm not mad at you, James, because it's very obvious that was a PR statement that you were told to read out. So, for future reference, when I'm yelling at you about this point, I'm yelling at Warner Brothers rather than you, because you couldn't possibly be that stupid. I'm going to give you that much credit. But yeah, the idea of a deconstructionalist, edgy, cynical, realist superhero team is not new in the comics, nor is it new outside of the comics, i.e., in like the superhero genre of movies and shows. Doesn't mean you can't do it better. Granted, I have faith in you to do it better than the boys. I'm not gonna extend that to I think you can do it better than Invincible, because that's not happening. Invincible's awesome. But that's neither here nor there. On to Paradise Island. Honestly, the same thing I said about the super. It's less world-breakingly stupid than what you did with Superman Legacy, because that was just world-breakingly stupid to even call it that. But you really, especially given that Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins aren't around anymore, should lay the fuck off the mainstream, the normie characters for a while, because not only is that just a good idea in general, but people are mad at you for what you've done with them.
Right.
So shoving the new version in their face immediately after screwing them over is not a good idea.
So
PR disaster in waiting.
Dalton.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what else? I was gonna say, like, yeah, I agree with, like, put these characters, like, take the mainstream heroes and stuff, and like kind of put them off to the side for the time being.
Especially because it's not like people don't know about those characters already.
Sorry, I do want to finish my point.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, to be fair, I would argue Wonder Woman is. I mean, she's mainstream, but she hasn't been given her fair shake.
I mean, yeah, but the Gal Gadot version is still fresh in everyone's mind.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying, in terms of overall things, never really been given her fair shake.
Yeah, but the only two. There are 4 or 5 versions of Superman and Batman that I can think of off the top of my head, but Wonder Woman only has Linda Carter and Gal Gadot, pretty much.
I mean, this could be an interesting thing, but I think it's just like, again, I mean, yeah, I do agree with Dom. Like, it honestly, it kind of works here, but again, like, just give the big guns a break for a time being, and just focus on like the weird stuff first, and like just build a brand before you.
Yeah, and by the way, James, speaking as one of your biggest defenders ever, because I have been for a long time one of your biggest defenders ever, what I want from you is the weird stuff. Like, that's on brand for you. When I heard that James Gunn was doing the DC universe, that's what I wanted. I didn't want this halfway between weird and not weird that we're getting, because it's not. The thing is, it's not going to please anyone. The people who actually want the normies still, or want the normies again, probably are the kind of people who were fine with the Henry Cavill Superman and the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman and don't want other versions. And the people who were sold on you, essentially, were sold on the brand that is James Gunn, are probably sitting there like me, going, commit to your vibe, and give me the weird ones, and let the normie ones sit it out for a while. Especially because the normie ones are a PR nightmare right now, and because they've been recycled so many times through the last few decades that a lot of people seem to think that Batman and Superman are all DC has to offer. So it would be a good idea to show them that you have a wider universe to play with than just Batman and Superman.
Right, okay. Anyway, anything else, or are we good?
No, I think we're good to move on.
Okay.
Batman.
God, hi. Okay.
Did you get something stuck in your eye?
It got like itchy.
Oh.
Oh. Okay. All right. Batman.
Batman.
Game of Thrones with Westeros, but with all of the inhabitants of Paradise Island. The introduction of the DCU's Batman is The Brave and the Bold. The Brave and the Bold is the story of Batman and his actual son, Damian Wayne. This is based on Grant Morrison's great comic book run. Damian Wayne is my favorite.
Okay, so I have a few things to say though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not opposed to Grant Morrison because I've watched some videos and reviews of his run on Batman. Which
Oh yeah, Grant Morrison's awesome, but that's not here today.
Weird. He gets a little weird and too big for his britches sometimes, or their britches.
I am kind of mad at him for faking being a chaos magician for so many years and then coming out and saying I was acting the whole time.
But I think my issue is that we're finally getting another live action Robin after, in terms of movies, right? Obviously, we got a couple.
Yeah. There was Dolph Lundgren in the Schumacher movies, which, aside from anything else, was not a good adaptation of Robin.
Did you say Dolph Lundgren?
Or no? Who was it that played? Who was it that played Schumacher's Robin?
I know who you're talking about, but I don't. I was just thinking, like, wait, Drago.
I was reaching for a name, and that was the first one that popped in my head.
Right.
I couldn't remember who the fuck played Robin.
Yeah, hold on. But okay, so the first Batman, and again, why has he got to be Damian Wayne? And no disrespect, honestly, to be fair, he's not a well-liked Robin.
Okay, save that for me because I'm gonna address that when I go.
Fair enough. Chris O'Donnell, how the fuck you mess that up?
I don't know how I got Dolph Lundgren out of Chris O'Donnell, but yeah, he's the first Robin since Chris O'Donnell,
right?
In live action,
movie,
excluding Titans, which doesn't even have a Batman in it.
Let's say movie. Let's say movie. Yeah. In the movies, I mean, okay, I'm cool with them having a pre-established Batman already, sure, but Damian Wayne, he is not a well-liked Robin. Okay, that is really where I was going to go with this.
You skipped 4 Robins that people actually give a shit about.
Yeah, like especially like, I mean, Dick Grayson. Honestly, I would love to see. I want to see Robert Pattinson have a Robin, just that is really cool, and for that character, it makes a lot of sense.
He's in year 1 still, so
no, yeah. Not even that. It's just like how the character, how the arc of that character, it works. It makes sense for him to get that one.
You also could show how they met and how they became the dynamic duo in that version.
And Jason Todd, he just opens a lot of like interesting storytelling, not even just like philosophical debate between the characters, but also emotional, very emotional writing for the characters as well.
I mean, Jason Todd is basically the edgy teenage son of Batman. In the like adoptive sense, because right. I mean the kid was introduced stealing the ribs of the Batmobile, for God's sake.
Actually, if I remember correctly, he was actually like his original. He was just a carbon copy of like a redheaded version of Dick Grayson.
I am if that version exists, it was not. It did not stick around.
No, yeah, obviously. I was just pointing that out.
I've never heard of an origin for Jason Todd outside of the steals the rims of the Batmobile version.
Ironically, he wasn't picked up by Batman initially after that. He was given to a foster home, an orphanage. Like Batman gave him to an orphanage at first. Turned out the orphanage was like a front for criminal stuff. So
Yeah, okay.
the whole thing. But my point, also Tim Drake, the guy hasn't been given a really good shake over the last I don't know how long he's been around.
Apart from being gay now for some reason.
But my point, hell, they're even female Robins, you know. But,
I mean even Carrie Kelly is probably more well liked than. Okay, I will put an asterisk beside the Damian Wayne is not well liked thing, because Super Sons did a lot to rehabilitate his character.
That's fair. True. My point being, initial understanding of the character, and
the raw concept of Damian Wayne is probably the least liked Robin. Period.
Yeah, and they say that they're building, they're taking inspiration from Grant Morrison, no offense to Grant Morrison, he made Damian Wayne a complete fucking asshole.
Yeah, he's an edgy little shit.
Which is ironic because apparently he forgot this. In actual continuity, the son of Talia and Bruce. Talia faked having a miscarriage and gave the boy to adoption, where he'd be raised by other people. But yeah, they changed. But Grant Morrison changed that.
Yeah, I don't mind changing that, because I think that if he was raised by other people, that would have been a waste of potential. But
no, that's fair.
But can I?
Yeah, just give me let me say one more thing. Again, just kind of going what we said before, the other stuff is, if again this doesn't technically work for this chapter, you know.
Yeah. Also, I maintain the advice: you should have left the big guys alone.
Yeah,
Especially if you're keeping Matt Reeves' version as an Elseworlds.
Yeah, so
that means there will be two Batmans debate, tangentially in continuity going at once, because that's probably going to confuse the normies more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess is my segue to my bit.
Mm-hmm.
One, why are you doing a second Batman at all? That's inherently stupid. Period. To try and have two versions of Batman, cinematic versions of Batman, going at the same goddamn time. Two, you skipped over Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, and Carrie Kelly, to skip all the way ahead to Damian Wayne, who is the least liked version of Robin. And also, and this is another reason why, apart from Damian being an obnoxious little shit, why this bothers me, Damian Wayne as a Robin is reliant on the most continuity, i.e., his backstory actually has an impact on Batman's own backstory, which means we're repeating the Snyderverse again, in that we're skipping over all of the Batman becoming Batman bits, which an established Batman is one thing, but a Batman with years worth of continuity is quite another. You could easily skip ahead to the point where you could, frankly, if you were going to do a secondary Batman, including, even in spite of the fact that Matt Reeves' version already exists, which is stupid. If you were going to do that, I would have actually made the first movie about Bruce meeting and adopting Dick. That would have been where I would have gone with that, because that allows Batman to have already been an established character, but also allows for a new place for people to jump on with, and actually allows a already established Batman to still have essentially an origin arc. But it also would have allowed Dick Grayson to be the POV character for the audience. He would have been introduced to Batman's world along with the audience. Therefore, it would have allowed them to get into the new version of Batman without doing an origin story over again. But Damian is one of the things that is crucial to his character is that Damien is essentially similar to Daria or Raven in the sense that he is already the smartest little brat in the room. He already knows shit. So he functionally cannot be the POV character. Because he was raised by the League of Shadows. He's not fazed by Batman's world. He doesn't have any reason to explore it any further than he already has, because he knows going in who Batman is and what he does.
League of Assassins.
Yeah. I always go League of Shadows because that's what they call them in the Christopher Nolan movies. And frankly, I think League of Shadows is actually a better title than League of Assassins. But that's not it. That's neither here nor there.
That's fair.
But even outside of all of this, why would you do a secondary Batman with? Why would you want there to be two separate versions of Batman running at once? Period. Especially one that requires the backstory to already be known to most people, because Damien again is the most continuity heavy Robin, and yet you're jumping in with him as the Robin on the first movie.
Anyway, shall we?
Yeah, moving on.
Okay.
Batman.
Yep.
Robin, he's a little assassin who Batman tries to get in line. And so this is the story of the two of them and the beginning of sort of the Bat family in the DCU. Next up is a TV series called Booster Gold. Booster Gold is one of comics' really popular cult heroes. He is a fascinating guy. He's a loser from the future.
Why would you start a new Batman franchise with the Bat family? That kind of shit is exactly what people want to see built up.
I don't.
And on to Booster Gold, actually, because
okay, so I mean, general idea, I'm not opposed to it, right?
Yeah.
However, again, I feel like we've been saying this a lot already. It doesn't make sense for this chapter.
Either you're trying to adapt the Gods and Monsters story, which this doesn't work with, or you're trying to adapt the concept of Gods and Monsters, which this also doesn't work with. Also, in relation to how I had my doubts, because it was very obvious that the Authority is sort of the DC equivalent of the Boys. It's fairly obvious to me that you're going to try to make Booster Gold basically a cross between Shazam and Deadpool for the DC universe. And I don't think you're going to be able to do meta-aware superhero better than Deadpool.
Mm.
And also, again, this seems like the kind of character you'd want to introduce in a movie, and having him in a show instead is probably going to alienate some people.
You know, Legends of Tomorrow actually did have a Booster Gold on there, although I have not seen the whole thing. Apparently, it was played by the guy who well, it was a different version, obviously, but it was the guy who played Turk in Scrubs.
I don't know anything about Scrubs, so I have no point of reference for that.
Right. You need to watch more shit, man. It's ironic coming from me.
Yeah, I was gonna say people in glass houses really shouldn't throw boulders, man.
What is that? For the record, it's rocks, not boulders.
I know, I was adapting it because it's a bigger rock when you throw something like that.
Yeah, I got nothing really to say. Like, yeah, basically, I agree with what Dalton said. Like,
there's only so many ways to actually do both are gold. Either you're ripping off Deadpool, or you're ripping off Shazam, or both. And frankly, you're not gonna be able to do Deadpool better than Deadpool. And having it be a show is just, it's going to even if people like the show, it's going to be confusing to people who only watch the movies, and a lot of people who only watch the movies are going to be going to be annoyed by essentially the extra homework of having to watch the shows.
right. Anyway, shall we?
Banana.
Who uses future technology to come back to present day and become a superhero so that people will love him. It is basically the superhero story of imposter syndrome on an HBO Max series. One of my favorite comic book series from last year was Tom King's run on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And so we're going to turn that into a big science fiction epic film.
What?
I did not know Tom King did a story like that. So I don't really have a point of reference.
Okay. Question: where the fuck are Superman 2 and 3 in this lineup? Because you're introducing a Supergirl before you've even established a solid foundation of the Superman franchise.
I don't. And
let alone the behind the scenes controversy of the rebooting Henry Cavill, the calling it Superman Legacy, which is stupid, and yet all the criticisms we already made of Superman Legacy, and then add to that introducing a Supergirl before you've even made a franchise out of the Superman.
Also, I'm not
Granted, I could easily see the Authority movie basically having Superman as the quote unquote villain and doing Superman versus the Authority. So this might be this might technically, there might actually be 2 appearances of Superman here, but even so, you haven't even successfully established a new Superman yet, and you're already broadening it out to Supergirl.
right.
Not to mention the possibility, and I hate to bring this up, but it's that I normally wouldn't bring this up, but I'd be lying if I didn't think it was a factor. The possibility of Supergirl being a feminist Mary Sue and showing up Superman and basically being DC's Captain Marvel.
I didn't want to. Again, broken record at this point. This has nothing to do with the title.
Unless you're going the super god approach, which sigh and shame.
Even then, I don't really think it does. It just
right. I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit because I could see them go. That's how I could see them rebutting this is, well, we're going the meta like super god archetype approach. Therefore, but as we just went over when we were talking about this in the Superman Legacy section, the super god approach is not the approach most people like for Superman.
right.
And for my part, being the mystical cosmic loving asshole that I am, the idea of you doing characters that are gods in the abstract when you have so many gods that are overtly mythological or godlike in and monstrous in the universe to pull from is just frankly insulting. I.e., why do you need a metaphoric air quotes god when you have literal gods to play with?
Okay. Okay. Geez, we really need to get through this.
Yeah, this is still only the first topic of the night. We're almost done though.
It's us.
Yeah.
Anyway, that now.
And
Now, Superman is a guy who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents. Whereas Supergirl in this story, she is a character who was raised on a chunk of Krypton. She watched everybody around her perish in some terrible way. So she's a much more jaded character. And that brings me to Swamp Thing.
So a jaded, cynical Supergirl who probably is actually like.
I mean, to be fair, that's actually like that has been pretty standard for the character. Not always, but in more recent continuity. Now, I wouldn't say jaded or cynical, but jaded, not cynical.
How are those two things different in this context?
Okay, in this context,
because I would argue that jaded and cynical are sort of synonymous with each other.
Okay, so how? Okay, based on different world weary, I would say, in terms of jadedness. Cynicism more so like how we're usually used to describing cynicism, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember because I've not read much of Supergirl. I am aware of the character and I've done some studying on her, but she is kind of a dark character, actually. She can be very smiles and stuff, but she is also capable of. I mean, like, think about it. You know, like think from a realistic
survivor of a genocide. You know, I'm thinking of a certain amber-eyed, purple-haired character that we made, and how formative that is to his character. But that's not here to there.
Okay. And I would be cool if they tackled that kind of character, because the show fucked it up. Everyone remembers the show, the Supergirl show.
Yeah,
that did no one any favors. I mean, we got.
But here's the other thing about this. I worry slightly about making her world weary and jaded, because, and again, I hate that I have to bring this up, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I saw it. I could easily see them make that the justification for why she's a feminazi bitch, in the same way that they did, in the same way Marvel did with Captain Marvel, i.e., I could easily see them turn this into Krypton was a patriarchy and that's why it blew up. Derp.
Okay, I see that point, and I don't technically disagree. There is a chance of that happening. Okay, Giant Turtle. The way I see it, cynical is expectations, jaded is reaction to things. Someone jaded will not freak out when bad things happen, and cynical people will predict or at least prepare for them.
Okay, I don't know if I agree with that definition, but you successfully proved that they can be the two can be separated. I normally consider them basically synonymous with each other, because you have to be jaded in order to be cynical, and you have to be cynical in order to be jaded, and so on. But fair enough. My issue is, one, establishing a Supergirl before you've even done a Superman sequel, or establish, and this is even assuming that the new Superman is going to be successful, which I have my doubts. And two, here's the other problem I have with this: the idea of bringing a Supergirl in this early. Who is going to be in the right when they cross over? Is the optimistic mom baseball apple pie aw shucks nature of Clark Kent / Superman going to be the thing that elevates Kara out of her cynicism, or are they going to do it the other way, where Clark is going to be brought down several pegs by the smarter, quote unquote, Supergirl?
I don't know.
Because if they do it what I would consider the right way, which is Kara starts out cynical and becomes more optimistic with Clark's help, that wouldn't be a problem. But if they do it the other way, where Kara is going to be portrayed as being in the right for being cynical, and Superman is going to be portrayed as being childish and naive and overly optimistic for being the pure the Nerdstone character he should be, that would be terrible. And maybe I'm being a little bit too cynical myself and being a little bit too punch drunk here, but I could easily see them turn any crossover of Superman and Supergirl into Clark is an optimistic idiot and Kara has to bring him down to the real world.
Right. Okay. Don't disagree. Anyway, we gotta move on. Like, I'm sorry. We just
On to Swamp Thing. This is the one that I'm the most excited for. It's also the only one that actually seems to be working with the premise.
Yeah. Well,
he's the only monstrous or godlike character here.
Well, Creature Commandos.
Well, yeah, fair enough too.
Those are the only two so far that I've seen. So
yeah, but Creature Commandos, which is a team of monsters, and Swamp Thing, who kind of straddles the line between god and monster, depending. Like he's the and also this is the last one in this entire video.
Oh,
so
okay. I'm sorry, Don. It's just we really. Shall we?
Yeah.
Banana.
Last thing we're going to talk about a very dark horror story in the origins of the monster who is Swamp Thing. And although it's totally outside of the rest of the DCU, it will still feed into the rest of the stories. Anyway, those are the stories that I can tell you about right now. I've loved the DC characters since I was a child. They're incredible.
Okay.
James, so you're telling me that literally the best example of your Phases theme is actually on the periphery of the wider DC universe. That is what you just said. You said that Swamp Thing is only barely in continuity with the rest of the DC universe, which means he's off to the side. So that tells me you created an entire phase around the concept of gods and monsters, and the only two things that actually fit that theme in anything resembling a literal sense are Creature Commandos, the first thing you talked about, which is a animated small-scale TV show, and the last thing you talked about, which was Swamp Thing, which, according to you, what you just said, we have it on tape, is off to the side and only tangentially related to the rest of the continuity. And this phase you titled Gods and Monsters.
Okay, so I do want to bring up something that I just kind of noticed with the whole video that was kind of bugging me. Although I wanted to save it towards the end simply because I wasn't sure if they were going to change that up, but this video lacks presentation. And by what I mean by that is there's no music, there's no enthusiasm with James Gunn. They're just. I have seen other video. Like honestly, this feels like it should have been at like Fandom, like DC's Fandom, and it should have had like this more grander and epic feeling to it.
And not to break the rules and compare them again, but when Kevin Feige does these kind of presentations, he is over the moon, or at least he convinces people that he's over the moon about everything he announces.
Right. So
also, it's the complete phase when he does it, and as James Gunn pointed out, this is only part of the first chapter. So, which why you would do this kind of video before you are willing to, if you're gonna do this kind of presentation, do it on the whole chapter, dude.
So, what was that? Yeah, this feels like it's just shot, but honestly, this feels like it was shot in like a very quickly in like a side room of like a boardroom or something. Just really quickly, and just popped out.
Yeah, it feels like we have to put the least amount of effort we can into this, so we can at least put something out there.
Right.
And again, I don't want to harp on this point once too often, but you didn't even present the whole chapter. You presented a part of the chapter, which is not how you should do this.
Right, and I also, again, I it's broken record at this point, but really only 2 things out of 5, right?
The first and the last.
Yeah, 2 things out of 5 things that he's mentioned in only the first half of this chapter pertain to the actual title of it.
Yeah. And that's whether you're talking about the storyline title or you're talking about the actual concept of DC's Gods and Monsters.
Hell, you know what's weird? You know what's weird? The Dark Universe promotional trailer that was also called Gods and Monsters had more
effort in.
Yeah, had more oomph to it than this.
Yeah. Also, because I can hear people criticizing us over this already, but yes, I suppose you could throw in Superman and Supergirl into the God category if you go the metaphoric super god sense. But as we went into great detail on for like 20 minutes, that is not a good rendition of these characters.
Anyway.
So at the most we have 4 out of 5 movies and 4 shows that could potentially be okay. Maybe Paradise Island as well, because they are demigoddesses. But even that's just like I'm the most straightforward literal translation means that only 2 things count. But I guess you could squint and make some of them work. But even then, those adaptations aren't good ideas. So
part of me feels like I should, not out of spite or anything, but I just out of like my instinct to write, I should actually pitch my own little DC Gods and Monsters list.
Yeah, but that's for another day.
Yeah.
Especially because we didn't even mention all the bullshit with the Flash. So let's actually get into the Flash thing.
Oh, we still gotta finish this video just for.
Yeah, banana or Batman.
Yeah, Batman. Here we go.
Incredibly important to me. I knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do something very different. One of the things that's very important for me in all of these movies and TV series is that the director's vision and the vision of the writers and all of the creators is unique and something special.
I disagree.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to press exit out on that, because even if it were just you, even if it were just James Gunn's DC universe, I have enough faith in you that you could have done better than this. And I know that because whenever James Gunn is given the helm for anything, he always focuses on the obscure, weird, cosmic, trippy characters that I like. So if James Gunn were left to his own devices and didn't have to worry about Warner Brothers presumably breathing down his neck, I would have expected a Spectre movie, a Jason Blood Etrigan movie, a Green Lantern franchise or a Green Lantern movie that focused more on the mystical nature of the power batteries and or the like Lovecraftian entities that exist inside them. That kind of stuff. I would have expected a Justice League Dark. I would have expected I would have expected like I would have expected maybe The Outsiders. That would have been another good one because they have like Elemento and Katana and stuff. And so like there are so many other characters you could do, or hell, do a Doom Patrol movie, because Beast Boy, of course, is a mad science experiment. Robot Man, kind of same thing. Negative Man, he also straddles the line between the scientific and the supernatural, and so on and so forth. And of course, the villains they fight are like the Brain and Monsieur Mala, which that definitely fits in the monsters category. Like there's so many more actually cool and comic booky versions of this that would have actually focused on the gods and monsters thing. Hell, one up the shit out of Netflix and do a Sandman adaptation. That would have been awesome. And you could have tied in Lucifer too. Who knows? But
still a little bit more. So
yeah, Batman.
yeah.
Storytelling is always king. That's all that matters to us. And I want to be true to those stories. I want to be true to you guys and really give you something different than you've ever seen before. Anyway, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you watching. I hope this was exciting for you because it's really exciting for me. And I can't wait to start to dive into these stories with you.
So why did so many of the choices you made feel like deliberate middle fingers to the audience and or the very concept you were trying to sell us on? Because I'm the easiest sell in the world for the concept of like I was so thrilled when he first announced the idea of gods and monsters. I was like, okay, we're finally gonna get all these cool, monsters characters and divine characters and supernatural characters. It's gonna be all cool, obscure, like Golden Age retro shit.
Dalton.
Like I was the easiest sell in the world for that. And then everything he announced just made me more and more upset. And then you get into Superman Legacy, and that's comically over the top stupid. Then you get into Supergirl, which maybe I'm calling it too early, but the potential for feminist Mary Sue bullshit there is just too high, and only two things actually related to the concept of gods and monsters. It's just it all feels so haphazard and so thrown together at the last minute. Anyway, on to the Flash. Speaking of things that feel haphazard and thrown together. Yeah, Dragon Turtle, but in that case, their optimism would dilute their jadedness, is what I'm saying. That's why I consider jadedness and cynicalness or nihilism to be synonymous with each other, because they feed into and exacerbate each other. Whereas optimism would temper and reduce jadedness, rather than like they're two things that exist in opposition to each other inherently, is what I'm getting at.
Right.
Whereas jadedness and cynicism sort of seem, at least to me, seem like two sides of the same coin. Yeah, you can have someone who's jaded and not cynical, or someone who's cynical but not jaded, but they are the exception, not the rule.
So the Flash official trailer.
Yeah.
This came out right as we were doing the start of February, right?
Yeah, because it was a Super Bowl trailer.
Right.
Yeah, but Flash Nana.
And no, I'm sorry, that doesn't work.
What?
That it doesn't work. Flash Nana, that doesn't work.
I don't know. I think it works fine.
It doesn't.
Dragon Turtle will be a tiebreaker for us. Flash Nana, yes or no?
I just don't think it rolls off the tongue.
I mean, it rolls off of mine fine.
Fuck you both. Fuck you both, okay? I'm not saying it.
Well, I will say it for you then. Flash Nana.
Flash Nana.
Tell me something.
You can go anywhere. Another timeline. Another universe. So why do you want to stay and fight to save this one? Because this
Okay.
So hold on. I mean, I have a few things because
Mhm.
I'm kind of gonna play neutral here. I mean, I'm fully aware, and I don't think this movie is going to do well at all. Just based on like everything.
Cough, cough, Ezra Miller, cough.
Yeah. I like how this movie. Like, if I'm talking purely technical, right? It looks okay. Like it looks cinematic, like the shading and stuff. It's not bland or flat or anything. And it's gonna sound weird for me, but I like the new Flash suit because mainly I just hated that other one.
It's a shame it took them 5 movies to get it right, or at least close to right.
I mean, look, the original one is fine. I get it's a prototype because he was just starting out and stuff, but I just hated the armor look for Flash.
Yeah, it didn't make sense for his character because the whole point of his look is supposed to be speed oriented. So you'd think he would have designed it for aerodynamicness in mind, or at least agility in mind.
I mean, it's made out of material that doesn't burn up, right? And that makes sense.
But you could have easily woven that into a fabric, and it probably would have done the same thing.
But yeah, I don't have anything else really to say currently. Although I will say it's weird how people were kind of willing to not forgive, but forget the things Ezra Miller did when they saw this. Which I guess.
Well, okay, yeah, that's I'm very annoyed at that, but I'll say my piece and then we'll continue. Okay, one. Even outside of all of the bullshit that is Ezra Miller doing Ezra Miller things, which is even if you can leave that aside, this is a version of the Flash that no one liked. 2. They're very obviously trying to rip off Spider-Man No Way Home. And 3, even though we haven't gotten to this part of the trailer yet, they are selling this movie on Batman like a motherfucker.
Right.
Which is disingenuous inherently because it's a movie about the Flash and your main selling point is Batman. So they honestly could have just called this Batman No Way Home and it would have actually been more reflective of the movie we're getting.
Right. And I do also have is that this kind of story, which are somewhat technically adapting Flashpoint, doesn't work because we haven't really established the character of this Flash.
Yeah. Speaking of things we haven't established, you can't do a No Way Home style crossover movie with a not pre-established with a continuity that's always in flux, which DC has been since like 2013. You can't do the big world changing crossover if you don't already have an established world to care about and change, which does kind of tie back into this is a version of the Flash that nobody likes. And that's why I'm annoyed at this trailer for selling itself on Batman so hard. Because number one, it's a Flash movie, so ideally you'd sell it on the Flash, but it's a Flash that nobody likes, so they had to cover their ass with it. And 2, given all the behind the scenes bullshit of the Ezra Miller situation, the Amber Heard situation, the disgrace of how they treated Henry Cavill, the continuity issues, every other thing. How are you expecting this Hail Mary to actually work? Because here's the other funny thing. This movie exists purely to reboot the universe. So what's going to happen if it bombs? I.e., if it underperforms massively and nobody sees it, or very few people see it, how's that going to be a good basis for a rebooted universe? When the movie that does the rebooting is a movie no one liked, about a character no one liked, in a universe that barely even qualifies as a universe half the time.
Uh,
Yep. Flash Nana?
that Nana. That seems more appropriate, to be fair.
I mean, given how this movie is basically Batman No Way Home, yeah, kind of. But I'm sticking with Flash Nana.
I'll say Bat Nana because I feel like both are valid in this case.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Fair enough. God damn it, you made me do it. Flash Nana.
Bat Nana.
This is the world where my mom lives. I'm not going to lose her again.
Time has a pattern that it can't help reliving. Different people, different worlds.
I wish, like the concept and stuff, I'm cool with.
Again, they're basically ripping off No Way Home, but then again, No Way Home worked. So, yeah.
Right.
The base concept of this could work if it were a universe we cared about,
I mean,
and if this version of the Flash was a version we cared about. But
I
the
mean-
problem is they wouldn't have done Flashpoint if that were the case, because Flashpoint is basically the in-universe retcon reason button.
right. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think No Way Home really worked. I might be the odd man out on that situation. But
I mean, it did work as well as a lot of people think it did, but I thought it worked okay.
But
I had a lot of issues with it, but then again,
so again, it's just again, I've made my issues not about the MCU Spider-Man, and that movie didn't really help, to be honest.
mhm.
So gonna say something.
Mm-hmm.
Again, again, just given like for one thing, I'm also aware that apparently there was a lot of like issues making this movie. Like so many directors and writers had to come out that it's basically become
Yeah, it's been reshot and reshot and reshot to hell.
yeah. So the fact that the trailer is somewhat coherent is nothing short of a miracle, I think.
Yeah, no, it's impressive that they made a No Way Home style movie at all, frankly.
Yeah.
But even then,
Banana.
even then, it's a version of a character no one likes, played by an actor people really don't like.
The real issue is, and I've seen people bring this up, is that they made Barry Allen effectively Wally West, which kind of has been an issue, to be fair.
Well, I could overlook that, but
I'm on the fence about it, to be fair.
but in any case, you're basing your entire reboot on a version of the Flash no one likes, played by an actor people really don't like at the moment. And also, based on this trailer, you're making the Flash a secondary character in his own goddamn movie because you know full well that people don't like him or the actor who's playing him. Which is a smart idea, but it's kind of inherently disingenuous.
Uno?
Yep. Flash Nana.
That Nana.
Drawn to each other like magnets.
My face. You stole my face. If you were to go into the past,
And in theory, this should work because it's two different versions of the main character. But in practice, what we're getting is two different versions of Ezra Miller. which means we have one movie with twice the amount of Ezra Miller in it.
Like the worst part is, I want to care because Flash is a pretty cool character. Never again, like it's a weird thing with like Wonder Woman that, like even with the Flash show, I feel like they haven't really given him.
I think this movie would work a lot better if it was Grant Gustin rather than Ezra Miller, frankly. But that's neither here nor there.
No, he's better, and I'm just, to be fair, the writing, the CW sucks.
Yeah, it's a writing issue and an aesthetics issue and a budget issue.
Oh no, actually, they've actually gotten pretty good with like the costuming. Like, and actually, it's a better costume in more recent seasons. It's actually comic accurate.
But in any case, yeah.
You know, actually, I'm sorry. I want to bring up. I feel like I should bring up one, like an image of him, just so we have a comparison, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But please continue.
I forget what I was gonna say now. Shit.
All right.
Yeah. Moving on. Flash Nana.
Yeah. Sorry, things been a little weird. Wait a second.
Yep.
There we go.
I have no idea what the consequences can be. Bruce, I could fix things. You can also destroy everything. This can't be happening. I completely broke the universe. Sorry.
We've been waiting for you.
I created a world.
Okay, so 3 things. One, sucks if this is going to be the last time we see Ben Affleck's Batman.
Yep, we never got more of him, and yeah.
And I will
again wasted potential of doing a No Way Home style movie in a universe that wasn't really ever established as a universe, following a character nobody likes, twice the amount of that character nobody likes, and selling the movie based on characters that aren't the main character of the thing.
Right. So that. Yeah. So first, that sucks. Obviously. 2. Basically, yeah, what you said is like they're bringing in characters from other stuff in a continuity that was constantly in flux, and I should feel something because this would, again, in theory, this concept should work and is cool.
In theory, this would be the movie that brings everyone together. You could finally have a movie that brings together the Snyder fans and the softcore reboot fans and whatever new fans there might be for James Gunn's approach and so on and so. And this is a thing that you'll notice when we get deeper into the trailer. But the biggest issue I have with this is this came out after James Gunn's announcement of the new status quo, and there are no allusions whatsoever to the new status quo in this movie. Because the smart way of doing this is have Barry break time and go to the alternate universe like Barry always does in Flashpoint, and then use the opportunity to set up the new characters, the characters that are going to be the new status quo, and then when he changes everything back, bits and pieces of the new status quo are interspersed with the old status quo. That would be the smart way of doing this. But instead of doing that incredibly straightforward, incredibly sensible thing, you're acclimating us to a continuity that you're going to abandon as soon as this movie is over. I.e., the version of Supergirl we're going to get in a bit is not the version of Supergirl we're getting from James Gunn. The version of Batman we're getting in a bit is not the new Batman, and so on and so forth. So even that very basic bitch, if you're going to do a timeline fuck up / multiverse reboot movie, acclimate people to the new continuity in the alternate universe and then bring parts of it over. Like that very basic, straightforward thing that everyone does in this kind of storyline, they failed to do here in and of itself.
Right.
So even as a No Way Home style let's reboot the universe type movie, it's failing at that.
Yeah,
Bang it. Flash Nana?
I had something else to say, but
No, go ahead.
no, I forgot. I forgot it.
Okay.
Actually, before I do, Giant Troll, forgot one thing played by an actor nobody likes and should probably be in jail after canning all the actors people did like. They kept him in Amber and canned everyone else.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Not only are you keeping the one actor that nobody liked and making him ostensibly the main character, you're also getting rid of everyone that people actually did like. So even in the auspices that you would try to do a multiverse fix 'em up movie, using the like bastard love child of the Snyderverse and the soft reboot of the Snyderverse, you're not even keeping the parts of either of those continuities people liked. So there's that.
Right.
Yeah, moving on.
Right.
Flash Nana. Unless you remembered what you wanted to say.
No, I'm sure it'll come to me, but yeah. Anna?
Flash Nana.
World with no metahumans. And now there's no one to defend us. Want some help? Oh. You are.
Okay. For starters,
Sorry.
as much as I do a minor geekgasm by seeing Michael Keaton back, it's annoying because this isn't his universe. This isn't the. They're obviously not in the Tim Burton verse, which would have been at least part of the point of bringing Michael Keaton back, to also bring back the aesthetic of the Michael Keaton movies that was so well liked that they used it as the basis for the animated series as well.
Mm-hmm. Although I'm sure that would have been cost a pretty budget to get those sets remade.
I mean, yeah, but that's the problem. If you're gonna do this, you gotta do it.
Yeah, that's true.
And another thing, and this is a minor and very Dalton specific criticism here, but according to Barry in that last segment there, he created a world with no metahumans, and now there's no one to defend you. Barry, I hate to be this guy, but in addition to the average Batman or so on and so forth, there are also magic users. Magic is a skill anyone can learn. Doesn't require any metagenes.
You know what would have made more sense? They created a world with no heroes.
Yeah, but that would break the thing of why is Batman here then? So I understand what they were going for, but number one, yes, that doesn't that means Batman, but also it would include people who are magic users. It would include all of the like street level detective characters like the Question, Constantine, so on and so forth. It probably would also include the sapient ape species, so Detective Chimp and so on. Also, though, any characters that derive their powers from technology explicitly, like the Atom, like
It's terrific.
like to some degree the Green Lanterns, because there's no aspect of the Green Lantern mythos that requires the ring bearer to be a metahuman, and the ring is essentially a quasi mystical alien piece of technology. So the 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 implication is supposed to be there are no people with powers, but a lot of people get their powers from non-meta human sources in the DC universe, my dude.
Okay. Giant Turtle, maybe no superpowers, but still heroes.
Yeah, again, like I said, there are a lot of ways to get powers that aren't reliant on metahumans, like magic, science, technology. Again, the alien technology of the Green Lanterns and so on. And again, that would be an excellent opportunity to introduce the new continuity's Green Lantern, considering we know from the flashbacks in Justice League that the Green Lanterns exist in the Snyderverse or softcore Snyderverse continuity, but we never actually got focused on them. So that would be that would actually be a cool way of using this. Of like, there are no metahumans on Earth or no like heroes on Earth, but then Earth's Green Lantern shows up and is like, would you need a hand or something? That would be cool too. I would love to see Dr. Fate back because in this universe it's possible he might not have been dead, but I realize that I'm literally the only person who would have geekgasmed that much about that character, so fair enough.
I will say I do like how Michael Keaton looks in terms of like the camera and stuff.
I like it, but again, he's only half of the Batman that I remember because so much of the Batman that I remember was focused on the way Tim Burton and later Paul Dini and Bruce Timm did his universe.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just talking more aesthetics than anything. I just like how, like, don't get me wrong, the film, like legit film look of the old movies is cool, but I like the more like kind of high res, high definition thing.
Mm-hmm. But also, and this is a point only in the kind of meta sense of like, it bothers me that everyone prior to this trailer coming out was all on they were all on the same page for different reasons, i.e. they all had their own reasons for hating DC's guts. But as soon as people saw Michael Keaton, a lot of people, everything that DC had done up until that point, all the stupid shit with Amber Heard, Ezra Miller, Henry Cavill, all of the various continuity issues, all of the constant rebooting and shuffling and rebooting again, all of that was apparently forgiven because Michael Keaton showed up. And I'm sorry, but it's going to take more for me to forgive you than one member berry from my childhood. Yes, Michael Keaton is my Batman. Yes, I wore the VHSs of Batman and Batman Returns out when I was a child. But number one, he's not in the actual universe that I remember him being in, which bothers me. And number two, it takes more than just one single member berry from my childhood to make me happy.
No. Hello, Summertime Gaming. Nedro says basically it sounds like you guys are just saying make it just street level.
No, because like I say, I would throw in magic users and or the Green Lanterns. Basically anyone whose powers doesn't rely on a metahuman gene of some kind. Because magic is a skill, technology is a skill, fighting is a skill. So any skill-based or technology-based character should still, in theory, be fine.
Okay, Soka says Boku Budokai Tenkaichi 4 is revealed. A thing from my childhood is back.
What?
I don't know.
I know what Budokai Tenkaichi is, but I don't know what relevance it has here.
Anyway, we gotta move on. We got other things to talk about too. So
yeah. but Flash Nana.
Okay. Batman.
Still resisting at our protest. Fair enough.
Yeah. I'm Batman. If I can't undo what I did,
Like
Again,
still
as,
like
as awesome as it is to hear that theme again, it's going to take more than Django and Keys to get me to forgive you for all the bullshit that you've done, DC.
like a part of me wants to like this movie, but not even like excluding the behind the scenes shit. I just don't think this is earned, you know?
Again, they're trying to do a version of No Way Home in a universe that isn't established with a character that nobody liked, played by an actor nobody liked, and that doesn't even do what most multiverse movies should do and set up new continuity. Like it's trying their damnedest to get there without any. They're trying to skip to the finish line without running the race, and it's bothering me.
Right. Anyway,
Flash data.
Batman.
Uh,
It also makes sense. You gotta admit that.
yeah, because they're using Batman to do most of the work. So I refuse to believe that if Michael Keaton wasn't in this trailer, this movie would have blown up like it did. So it is basically a glorified version. Also, there are two different versions of Batman in this movie. So at the very least, you wouldn't be wrong to call this Batman No Way Home, even though it's supposed to be a Flash movie nominally.
Anyway, so
Falling off my bed. Anyway, moving forward.
Batman.
Flash Nana.
if I can't get back, there might not be a future. What's the play? Batman, what do we do? We try.
I don't have anything to say. I'm not odd or anything.
And again, because the aesthetic of the actual scenes he's in don't look like Tim Burton's Batman, it even softens the blow of, oh my god, that's Michael Keaton, that's my Batman. Grr. Like even if I was just to switch everything off and just go with the that's my Batman member berries. If I was supposed to, if I'm supposed to be like a child and look at the dangling keys, the keys aren't even being dangled correctly, or rather, the keys that are being dangled are the wrong keys. Because it's not following the aesthetic or the continuity of the Tim Burton movies. So having Michael Keaton there is basically just meaningless.
Right. Now I got
Flash Nana.
Batman.
Try not to die. It's not Clark.
My name is Kara.
I'm Barry.
So this is something I actually wanted to bring up before. I think I mentioned the Dalton a while ago when I first saw this trailer. This version of Kara looks a lot like Laura Kent, who is a version of
The daughter.
a version of a child of Superman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I actually have a theory about that, which I'll explain in a minute. But here's the thing. Irregardless of my possible fan theory, which might give them an out here, which I'll explain later when it becomes relevant. To have a Supergirl in this movie, but not a Superman, is yet another Warner Brothers / DC dancing on Henry Cavill's metaphoric grave.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that was in plan before all that, so.
No, it wasn't. Henry was originally gonna be in this just like Affleck was, and they reshot it and edited him out and replaced him with Supergirl.
Oh.
So yeah, once again, if you're not going to at least be humble enough to realize that it's not even it's not even just a blind fanboyism we want Henry thing. It's if you have pissed off your audience, it's probably a good idea to just leave whatever pissed them off alone for a while, i.e. there should be no Kryptonians in this movie, period. That would be the obvious out of this. If you're not gonna have Henry in, or not even gonna have the new version of Superman in, just leave Kryptonians out of it entirely. And then at the very least, the fans that are angry at you don't have more ammunition to throw at you. But instead of that, instead of doing the sensible thing and ignoring Kryptonians entirely for the time being until people have had the chance to calm the fuck down, assuming they should, which I don't think they should, but that's neither here nor there. Instead of ignoring Kryptonians entirely and waiting for people to calm the fuck down, you gave them yet another middle finger by having Supergirl here and not Superman. And again, I have a fan theory that might make this somewhat okay, but it's not relevant yet. So I will withhold until we get there. Flash data.
Right, give me a second.
Barry, what are you doing? Our kids are going to want to see this.
Okay. If you were watching the trailer, you know that Zod was in this movie, i.e. Michael Shannon's Zod. Which means that some aspects of Man of Steel's continuity are still there. And given what Brainstormer pointed out, with this being the son of, or the daughter of, Wonder Woman, presumably Gal Gadot's version, and Superman, presumably Henry Cavill's, this could be a situation of, in this universe's timeline, Superman died, and that's why he's not here, but Kara is. And Kara could be his daughter. But even then, that's still going to piss people off, let alone the thing that I didn't mention yet, which is having a Supergirl replace a Superman in this way, especially with how controversial it has been behind the scenes. Even if you don't make it in any way social justice-y, I'm betting that the people who knee-jerk anti-social justice everything will see it as social justice regardless, because even I'm having a hard time not seeing it as both a fuck you to the fans and a feminist fuck you to the fans because of replacing Supergirl or replacing Superman with Supergirl. So even I'm looking at it going, on paper, this looks very social justice-y. Whether it will or not remains to be seen. So that in and of itself is going to create yet another layer of controversy here. Not only did you replace the Superman people wanted, you replaced him with a Supergirl, which might have feminist overtones, depending. So, regardless of whether you actually fucked up and made her a feminist Mary Sue or not, which I don't know, so I'm going to withhold judgment. It definitely looks like yet another case of we didn't think of how this could be seen as a PR disaster because we refused to read the room. Which seems to be a running theme with this new version of DC. Moving on, though. Brainstormer.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just setting things up and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So this one's kind of personal for me, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's still DC stuff, but it's Justice League X Ruby, Superheroes and Huntsman Part 1, the official trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because, well, I'm a big fan of DC and I'm a big fan of, well, I kind of was, of Ruby. And yeah, I want to get my 2 cents, and I also kind of want an impartial, semi-impartial voice on this as well.
Uh-huh. Because most of what I know of Ruby comes from Brainstormer. Although I remember when the comic version of this came out, and we were not impressed with it, so I will say I'm not... Knowing the way the Ruby writers have handled Ruby in recent years, and knowing what the comic this is based on was like, I'm not particularly thrilled regardless.
Right. Although this doesn't look like it's taking designs and stuff, but it looks like it is doing kind of its own thing.
Uh-huh. What would a good Ruby centric surrogate for Banana be?
Just
Hmm?
no, I would say Crescent Rose. Anyone who is a Ruby fan gets that. You're awesome.
I was going to suggest Dust, but you're the Ruby fan, so okay.
All right. Anyway, it's only 2 minutes, so
Uh-huh. Crescent Rose?
Crescent Rose.
Where am I? What am I wearing?
So I brought this up when we looked at the still image a while back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Dragon Troll it was. Like the first season or so. It's okay, so well, since Dragon Troll got it, I guess I'll mention it here. Crescent Rose is the name of, and you're actually seeing it right now, the weapon that is being held by the titular character, Ruby Rose. It is a high-impact sniper rifle with a collapsible scythe blade. Or, as a very popular phrase from the show that kind of became a catchphrase, has been forgotten recently in terms of designing of character-specific weapons. It is also a gun. Yeah. But, yeah. So the thing I was going to say is like it. Well, one, I've made it very clear that I hate the designs for the, and we'll talk more about that as we go in, obviously. But I hate the designs for the superheroes. Hold on. There we go. There it is.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is supposed to be an isekai, right? They're supposed to be from the DC universe and plopped into Ruby, so it's not like they're...
Yeah, it's supposed to be that. Although I find that kind of weird.
Okay, so question: if this is supposed to be an isekai of Superman, shouldn't he be bigger, like
Apparently, they all
musculature-wise?
turn into teenagers. I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy here.
That's dumb.
I
That's
know.
really dumb.
Yeah, thank you. I'm aware. I'm fully fucking aware.
I know, but just for the sake of posterity, for people that will watch this in the future, that's really dumb.
Yeah. I think okay, so I was gonna hold off on mentioning this, but I feel like I should mention it now. Because I've just noticed this problem after watching the show and its animation style for a while now.
Hmm.
Well, these characters don't have any outlines. And by that, I mean, like, you know, those, like, black lines that go around that kind of help distinguish each area of a character?
Hmm.
Yeah, they don't have that.
Yeah, that's been a problem with modern art styles in general, is the lack of
I think
lines.
okay, so the biggest issue is this is 3D animation. I think the black lines help because um, uh, sorry, Giant Turtles. I'll address that in a second, Giant Turtle. But someone who has critiqued Ruby a lot mentions the character's hands in terms of the animation engine they're using. Uh, since we get it close up here, like they're not as how did they word it? Uh, they don't have any like distinguishing. They're not defined. You know, they kind of appear as like kind of blobs.
Yeah, the lines actually help animation styles because they refine things a bit.
Well, I've also I don't know if anyone's heard of this game because it came out like within a month or so, called Hi-Fi Rush. It's a rhythm action game that is very anime inspired. Yeah, it's just like very fun kind of thing. I haven't played it myself because I don't really play real games anymore, but I watch some stuff. It actually looks fun. Um, but they have like these distinguished black lines around the characters' outlines, like around the head, like the chin areas and stuff. You know, like how you watch like old cartoons and stuff, like see like the heavy black outlines of their body,
Mhm.
like certain areas of their bodies and stuff. So this doesn't have that. And again, I understand it's very much a 3D animation, but I've seen 3D animation. Ironically, like certain 3D animations actually try to copy 2D a lot themselves.
Well, that's the thing. If they didn't want to have a line-heavy version of these designs, and this is a problem I have with 3D animation a lot in general. Like a lot of the time, 3D animators try to like mimic extremely photorealistic animation styles or anime. Um, when in actuality, if you're not going to be able to, if you're not going to be able to have lines, you should probably be trying to go for a more stylized thing,
Well,
kind of
so,
like Ed and Eddie or Gravity Falls or something like that.
yeah, I also want to point this out is that again, this was not the original animation engine that they used. I believe it was called Poser. Used for the first 3 seasons, and they
Mhm.
have those black outlines for the original models.
Oh dear. So they did do it right once upon a time, and they stopped doing it right. That makes it worse.
Yeah, because for the life of me, I always the character models in the newer engine, like the engine they're using now, have been using since season 4. Um, something that always felt off to me, and I never could find out until I watched something that had a similar engine, used a similar engine, I think.
Mm.
Because Ruby is technically supposed to be an anime. It's very anime inspired, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I could not think for the life of me of what was putting me off on the character designs. Mainly,
What was uncanny about it?
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Uncanny, not in the sense that it looks too realistic, but isn't. More so uncanny in terms of other designs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is the over design factor, right? Like they really
Mhm.
over design their characters to the point it becomes a mess.
And honestly, I would have preferred if they had gotten isekai in their normal clothes, and they actually had to find clothes in the actual world. And that would at least have explained why their designs are so weird.
Right. Sorry, I'm just trying to move this back. All right. Okay. So, actually, I will. I will. We'll talk about that when we get to the part where they show that. So, yeah, we'll address that later. But
Crescent Rose?
yeah, Crescent Rose for now. I do also want to point this out. This is technically out of continuity for both Ruby and DC stuff, obviously.
It's an AU, yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Honestly, it wouldn't have worked any other way, just given how the story in Ruby proper is currently.
I mean, granted, Brainstormer managed to make it work in the sense of the DC characters actually emerge from the Ruby continuity. Although he was smart enough to use the JSA instead of the Justice League, but that's
I mean,
neither here nor there.
I wouldn't say it's smart. I'm just giving.
No, it is because the JSA are more mystical and more retro and lend themselves more to the original continuity of Ruby rather than the Justice League.
Kind of
So
agree.
it's smart to bridge the universes using parts of the universes that are similar rather than trying to make them standoffish.
Yeah. Oh, and Dragon Turtle does seem to agree with you. I believe you said earlier around 11:01. So, it's that thing. Anyway, yeah, we should move on.
I forget what I said now that he's agreeing to.
Okay. Anyway, Crescent Rose.
Crescent Rose.
What are those things?
Grim,
I don't think I'm in Kansas anymore.
a princess.
Okay, you get 1 point for that.
And no memory of how you got here. This is Remnant. We weren't teenagers before this, right?
I mean, okay, so the actors who are voicing the heroes, I got no problem with. Honestly, they don't sound bad. I think again, it's just the designs of the characters are kind of. I mean, Wonder Woman's a lot better than she was in the comic.
Mm-hmm.
Although, and Flash too. Cyborg, I'm a bit iffy on.
I still am annoyed that Cyborg is a Justice League member rather than a Titan now. Martian Manhunter should have been here.
Although I'm curious what Green Lantern that is. I mean, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I have no idea, and I don't think the writers do either. Is the thing. But I will say they get 1 point for the "we're not in Kansas anymore" joke because that actually works on multiple levels, which is hilarious.
Okay. Okay, so Giant Turtle, okay, it isn't as bad as I thought. It sounds like they're being transported to DC. Just getting the Isekai universe translation. Still would prefer normal powers and such, but that at least helps some problems.
As opposed to what, Dragon Turtle? What are you proposing this as better than? Because I'm not clear on. I'm not clear on what you're contrasting this with and what problems you see with that.
I meant what you said about. Oh, okay. That was from earlier. What he agreed with you, like having to find new clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Also agrees with that. He likes Cyborg better as a Titan and Miss Martian, but partly because I like Martian and Miss Manhunter, and partially because I love the Teen Titans show before Go.
Yeah, I mean, there's that, but there's also the fact that it seems like Cyborg was the replacement for Martian Manhunter, and that's bullshit.
Yeah. Might have been interesting. Superman didn't have access to his Kryptonian powers here, but partway through got a semblance power that let him have his super strength / leaping back, maybe during some sort of heroic jump in front of an attack sort of deal.
I mean, yeah, but that would only work. Honestly, if Remnant had a sun that was a different color than Earth's sun, that would have made sense. But it has a yellow sun, so meh.
Yeah. I will say it looks. Ironically, it looks a lot more polished than the actual show.
Yeah, because Warner Brothers is the one doing this, and they have actual animation budget.
No, it was actually the Rooster Teeth animators, and there was a whole thing because they basically got fucked over because of it. And yes, so they put a lot more effort into this. It still has some issues, I think, because I don't think it's fully rendered. Oh, better than just saying it's the Ruby version of the Justice League native to the universe. Sometimes it works. Hold on. Sometimes it works like when Ben 10 crossed over with the Secret Saturdays. Usually I find those translations where it's one universe rather than two meeting, just ham-fisted and not really fitting either.
I disagree with you, Dragon Turtle, but that's also because I've seen Brainstormer's version of this where he does have the Justice. Again, it's the Justice Society, not the Justice League. But he had in his version the Justice League actually emerge on Remnant, and it works. And also, I disagree in general. I would rather see a version in cases like this. I would rather see those characters existing in canon to the respective universes than the isekais. But as a general rule, I hate isekais. I've realized that recently. There are occasionally good ones, like I absolutely love Overlord, but as a general rule, I hate isekais. And part of the reason I hate isekais so much, I think, is because the person in question almost never has control over what they get isekai'd into. And so many isekais love doing the thing where they put a character that's dissimilar from another character in the body of that character. Like they put a nerd in the body of a warrior or something like that. I would hate isekais less if what you got isekai'd into was a reflection of who you were to begin with. That I guess is my main reason why I hate isekais. That and the whole breaking the continuity of two universes by swapping one universe for another universe bullshit. But as a general rule, yeah, I hate isekais because they're so inherently tee-hee, we're being subversive most of the time. It's not always, but in 90% of all the isekais I've ever seen, it's always the let's play against type herder derp thing, and I hate that shit.
Right. Also, probably a bit of stop changing canon where it sounds like you guys are much happier taking liberties. And like isekais personally, just a lot of trash ones. I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Yeah, that's fair. And it might be a selection bias for me. It might just be I haven't seen many of the good. Like I say, I love Overlord. Overlord's awesome. But so it might just be I haven't seen enough good isekais. But in my defense, it's because there are so many really terrible isekais.
Okay,
But see, that's the thing. I can see where you're coming from with the I rather they didn't break canon thing, but this is the thing. If the authors, if the creatives actually put effort into these kind of things and didn't just make it haphazard because reasons logic, um, you can bring characters ostensibly from other universes into canon without it being universe breaking. You just have to put the effort in to understanding the similarities between the two canons. Again, I would cite Brainstormer's JSA in Ruby as an example.
well, JSR technically. Justice Society of Remnant. You know.
Well, yeah, but in any case, his Justice Society in Ruby thing that he does is a good example of this. As per usual, most of my problem with most of that issue, I don't think is an inherent problem. I think it's a created problem by a sincere lack of effort on the part of the creatives.
Dalton?
Yeah. Anyway, moving forward. Crescent Rose.
Actually, for Central, you can try asking Gerbil. She hooks me up with a lot of good anime / manga / web novels.
By the way, while we're recommending anime, I think I've recommended I think I have recommended Magi to you before, but just to reaffirm that you really should watch Magi at some point. Magi is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to add that at Dragon Turtle. Although I'm still working on the whole Rubies thing, mainly because I've been busy with like other stuff. So,
yeah. We're mostly working on the comic we're writing. We're mostly working on the Lionhearted universe.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to be fair, like a month ago, I noticed we were drifting away from it, so I made a point to suggest we refocus.
Yeah.
So that's probably why.
Also,
so
I just
if you're upset at Brainstormer not posting more of his one-off stories, it's my fault.
Well, there's also just I haven't had inspiration to write it. So. Anyway.
Yeah. Crescent Rose.
Yep.
Right. Vixen, I am so happy to see you too. I hated being team the first time around. Justice League, meet Ruby, Yang, and Blake. And these are our friends, John, Nora, and Red. Nice! I'd follow you into any battle.
Okay, I think I mentioned this when we talked about the still we'd seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, Dragon Troll. I've been posting stuff in. Yeah, it's in the Discord. There's like a. Yeah, I posted PDFs of things I've written down. I can't remember the. I can't remember the section, but yeah, it's in the Discord. You just have to
it's in the channel Discord.
Yeah, it's in the writing section, and anyone can post things there. I've just been using it, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys want to post your work there or something like or good stories, just recommendations there. So
but anyway, let's
Right. The thing I was gonna say was the backgrounds are kind of throwing me off a bit. Because like the models don't seem like they inhabit them, you know?
Yeah, they don't. They're doing that thing that sometimes happens in old like Hanna-Barbera cartoons, where the background is like several shades darker than the actual character models.
My issue, it's not even that. It's the issue of it's too flat.
It literally, again, to call back to what I was saying earlier, the old Hanna-Barbera shortcut of make all the backgrounds matte paintings and just move the characters around.
Yeah. I mean, the original, like the first 3 seasons kind of had that, but they at least tried their best.
Mm.
And they added elements in the foreground for the characters to interact with, even if.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, no, they had like fully 3D sets, I think, constructed. This just feels a bit. I wouldn't even say painting, like a JPEG or something.
Mm.
You know, an image.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Anyone in the comments, feel free.
I didn't see it until you pointed it out, but I see it now. Yeah.
It's weird. Like, I think some. It's I don't know.
I think the reason I didn't notice it is because I usually don't nitpick the stylization of anime or different animation styles. Usually I just chalk shit up like that to it's part of the stylization and it doesn't bother me.
Now you make me feel kind of like a dick.
No, it's good that you noticed it because in theory, I like under normal circumstances I would be more critical of it. It's just
So the weird thing
not
is
how I normally address animated stuff. Is
the thing that weirds me out is mostly, I think it's the wood areas or the outdoor areas like these shots here that feel like that. Like when they're in interior stuff, it doesn't feel like that. They feel like they're in that place.
again, and like I say, I noticed it when you mentioned it, but yeah, it's a very old school animation trick of make the characters or anything the characters interact with stand out, but make everything in the background as static as possible. It's essentially a trick to save on animation budget. And it's something you'll notice if you watched a lot of Boomerang as a kid, which I did.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking. I know what you're talking about. I'm in that weird like midsection of like I'm mentally I would say I'm somewhat millennial, but I'm age range. I'm actually a Zoomer.
Yeah, you're a Zoomer. You were 99.
I hate that. I really
you were a fairly early Zoomer, whereas I was a fairly late millennial.
Yeah.
You're only like 2 years older than my younger brother, though. That's funny to me.
I'm sorry. It's just like I want to like this. I really do because it's 2 of my favorite things. And like the last.
You're having a lot of what I normally have, which is in theory I should love this. So who fucked it up?
Right. But also the problem is it's mostly just action shots so far. There's no real story. Like there's a mystery, sure, but nothing really being given.
I mean, that's just chalk it up to lazy trailer stuff.
I know, but still, like it bugs me.
Yeah, I get you. I definitely get that. This is why a lot of the time my criticisms for movies and stuff is like this should have been easy and yet you had an instant win right there in front of you and you went out of your way to spite it. That's a lot of my criticism for movies tend to form like that. And I'm pretty sure Dragon Turtle can vouch for what I'm saying because he's watched I think both of my top 10 and my top 10 best and top 10 worst movies of 2022 list. I think Dragon Turtle watched both of those.
Right.
So he knows what I mean when I say a lot of my criticism tends to be in the form of this concept would have worked if you had been more straightforward with it and you went out of your way to spite it for no reason.
Anyway, we got a minute left, so
Crescent Rose.
The Grim are acting really weird.
Duck!
We need to get things back to normal as soon as possible.
We fought monsters before.
Grim, they're soulless creatures with only one purpose.
Here's another question that only a pedantic asshole like me would question here.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell are they gonna deal with the power scaling of the league? Because
Well, it looks like, okay, since they returned to teenagers, it looks like they technically, the forms they've taken are supposed to exist in this world, right? So, and I paused right at the point where it seems like it has been shown their powers have technically been transferred into semblances. Although
right, okay,
in Ruby itself is somewhat topsy-turvy sometimes.
Yeah. but the reason I question that is because if they didn't nerf them to some degree, then Superman could literally snap the planet if he's not careful. And if they did weaken them to fit the universe, then at some point one of these characters has to try and use their full powers and notice that they're weaker than they normally would be. Because if they
Right.
don't, it's a waste of it doesn't address the point.
Mhm.
Again, I realize I'm being a pedantic asshole asking questions about power scaling, but that's kind of my job with regards to me and Brainstormer's creative duo, is he comes to me with ideas, and I basically try to find the underlying logic of them by asking questions about stuff like mechanics and power scaling.
Right. Wait, I thought I said that. I think you might have, but I misinterpreted what you wrote there. Transfer, my bad. Like, what is someone like Yang going to do if Superman and the Flash are there, or Weiss if Green Lantern is? Okay, so can I give you some context on that? Yang is the powerhouse brawler. Her semblance literally is, she gets hit or gets angry enough, she gets stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically Hulk, blonde Hulk. Oh, earlier as in a podcast or two. Okay, my bad. Yeah, it's been a while.
But
Sorry.
yeah, that's and a smart writer would actually use that as an excuse to have the characters bond over that. Like maybe Yang. Again, I'm not sure how her character works, but maybe she likes having someone she can actually spar with in the form of Wonder Woman or Superman. Who knows?
I don't. I mean, yeah, early seasons Yang, she was the fun girl, blonde bomb girl, basically.
Yeah, but that's just an example of a potential character related thing that could happen here. But I don't know if the writers are smart enough to figure out that part of what makes these crossovers fun to do is the characters bonding over their similarities and differences and stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of my issue with this roster of the Justice League. Is I don't really think the interactions are going to be as interesting. Because, okay, so, and I mentioned this so many times before, and I hate doing it because it makes me feel like kind of an egotistical asshole.
Yeah, but you beat yourself up every time you have to do it. You're not in any danger of being egotistical. I will let you know if and when you ever get there.
Right. So on Twitter, about maybe 2 years ago, when the actual comics that are supposed to be based off of, like this movie's supposed to be based off of, like the comics are on board. I had actually wrote I did a very long Twitter thread of a rewrite for those stories, and I created a whole different roster of the Justice League. Like, I think it was supposed to be Superman, Wonder Woman, Dr. Fate, Nightwing, Green Arrow, Black Canary, and Shining Knight. And I picked those characters because for character interactions and dynamics. Because to me, personally, that's what I like most about crossovers, is how those characters want to act with each other. That's what drives me in terms of those. But then again, I am a character guy, so obviously that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Again, the way our dynamic duo-ness of writing works is he's a base concept and character guy. I'm a lore, world building, mechanics, and power scaling guy. Like that's how we end up making good things, just because he'll come at me with a basic idea and I'd be like, have you considered that this and this are connect, this and this logically connect, or that this and this logically connect? And then boom, he hates me when I do this, and I hate myself when I do this. But 9 times out of 10, it ends up making a one-off idea into a much larger, more substantive idea.
Right.
Which would be bad if it weren't for the fact that every single time it happens, it always makes the idea better.
Yeah. That is the biggest reason I usually like crossovers, the interaction between the different things. Throw these two things together and see what happens, like the fiction equivalent of a chemistry experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
I remember when we first sort of had an idea of what a solid idea of what the Lionhearted was. The first thing I think we did was we stuck them in different universes. I remember many of our Thursday conversations for a while were just, what if we took this character from the Lionhearted and stuck them in this universe?
Yeah, that was very fun.
I mean, to be fair, the whole beginning point of the Lionhearted basically revolved around, what if you and I existed, or at least the all new Lionhearted, the second iteration of the team. That started when we were pitching basically the idea of, what if you and I existed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Right. Yeah. Jerry Troll says, I've said this before, but I am really jealous of your friendship. I need to find a brainstormer.
Wait, you can't use this one. It's fine. I called dibs.
Oh, great. I've been reduced to a thing.
Yes, but you're an adorable, amazing, awesome thing, so shut up.
Okay, but kind of circling back around to the trailer, I really don't like this roster. I mean, like, they're cool characters, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel like their dynamics with the Ruby characters will be as interesting or dynamic or building,
because the writers don't understand either their own characters or the DC characters, or both.
Yeah. Okay, so it's very clear that I am a thing right now in this conversation.
Yes. Dragon Turtle wants to buy himself a brainstormer, right. And I called dibs on the one I already have. So
yeah, I mean, Vixen could be interesting, but I don't know. Like, again, it's weird to me because I think it could work. It's just like it does feel a bit off to me, you know?
It is, although from what you've told me about the writing of Ruby, that seems to be how they handle everything. Everything is just a little bit off because they just don't. They stop just shy of putting the necessary effort in.
I don't know, they backpedal.
Which always results in me making references of Once Upon a Time, because what Brainstormer describes of the later seasons of Ruby so much reminds me of Once Upon a Time. And it's funny because they're both fairy tale oriented shows. Yeah. Ostensibly.
Anyway.
Someday I'm gonna have to subject you to Once Upon a Time, but
I mean, I've seen a bit of it. I couldn't get into it.
The first 2 episodes are actually really good. The 2-part pilot is amazing.
Really?
It's just it goes downhill slowly but surely. Like the first season was mostly all right, but then like as soon as season 2 happened, it was very clear they hadn't thought through what they wanted to do with the concept of the world at all.
Right.
And so every season was basically a game of throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Dawn is 11:30.
Yeah. So
11:31.
Crescent Rose.
Crescent Rose.
To destroy humanity.
Sorry, I can't believe you have a teammate named Batman.
Now, is that better or worse than a teammate named Superman?
Right?
Focus.
You got a plan, kid?
I just might.
Okay, so I get what they're going for with the joke, but
Why the actual in-universe joke, from what I understand of Ruby, should have been, wait, he's called Batman, but he's not a Faunus? That should have been the joke.
yeah, no, actually, I agree. That actually would have been better. Although he turns into a Faunus here, and Vixen turns into a fox Faunus because he has a foxtail. So it's weird that they're not all just humans or humanoid, given Superman's case.
Yeah, Superman, Kryptonian, yada yada yeah. But I mean, I get it to some degree because they're animal-themed characters, so of course you're going to turn them into the literal animal-human hybrids in this universe.
I don't know. It's weird. It's weird to me, and
to me it seems like someone just went, wait, he's called Batman, and we have people that are animal hybrids in this setting, so obviously we're gonna make him a Bat Faunus.
Right. Okay, so if I remember correctly, the team consists of Giant Relaxed. This, what else? Okay, so it's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the Flash, Green Lantern, Cyborg, and Vixen.
I find it odd. Vixen particularly is odd here because, like, yeah, she is a Justice League member, but always more in the unlimited sense rather than like the main 7.
I think they changed one of the characters from the comic line that they had. I can't remember which one.
I can't believe it. Didn't they have a version of Aquaman at some point?
Yeah, they did actually. No, yeah, it was Aquaman. So they swapped Aquaman out with Vixen. That's a weird swap. I mean, Aquaman's a little hard because most of the time the characters are in a landlocked area, like Ruby. So I can understand swapping them, but
of all the ones to swap for, I would have gone with Hawkman or Hawkgirl because that actually kind of works in Ruby's setting better. Also, speaking of characters that would have worked really well in Ruby's setting, Black Canary, because you could just make her voice a semblance.
So basically take ideas that I already have and have done.
Well, yeah, you already pitched them, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird to me. Like I think it also helps that this trailer is just fucking generic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably just paranoid, but worried they did it for diversity point.
I think you might be reaching there, Dragon Turtle.
I mean, they've done stupid shit like that on Ruby before, but it's very little, and
I think that's still a stretch, regardless. Though.
Yeah, that's I would actually be inclined to agree. What's weird is apparently this took the most effort from the animators, which is why there's kind of a severe lack of quality with season 9 currently.
Hmm.
Yet this doesn't even look finished itself.
Yeah, it's not like this is the Mona Lisa, so we could forgive why season 9 went down.
Maybe someone there just liked Vixen, in which case, 50 chance it will be great or terrible based on that.
It also could potentially be one of the writers' self-inserts because the writers don't know how to do self-insert properly.
Actually, Ruby already has a self-insert character, technically.
Hmm.
One of the writers, Miles Lunar, also voices a character named Jean, who's based off Joan of Arc.
Ah.
Yeah. Ironically, I make him Green Lantern in my DC and Ruby, which is kind of what I'm calling the whole thing. Although he's actually based more off of Alan Scott Green Lantern than regular Green Lantern.
Which makes sense because that's the magic-based Green Lantern, so it would make more sense in Ruby's continuity.
Although, granted, my only exposure to Alan Scott Green Lantern is the New 52 Earth 2 Green Lantern, where he's an avatar for the green.
Yeah, no. See, they kind of in the original continuity, the the Star Sapphire, which is what the lantern is ultimately forged out of, is actually the core of a planet of magic users that funneled all their magic into one object, and then
To be honest,
their planet died, and the part of that core got shunted off on Earth, and then
I'll be honest, I think I'm kind of mixing those two together, to be honest.
Mhm.
Like, I'm keeping the Starheart, and I'm just also having him be the avatar for the green on Remnant. So
yeah, they never use Alan Scott for anything. I get really annoyed by the lack of use of Alan Scott, and I get even more annoyed when sometimes they use Alan Scott and they just turn him into a regular Silver Age style Green Lantern instead of playing with what makes him unique.
I will say this just because it's a fun little factoid, and I've talked to Dawn about this. I actually also worked on a list of headcanon voices for all the characters in my DC and Ruby roster. Bitch and a half to do, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I am curious how the hell, because this movie is going to end on a cliffhanger, right? Because it's part 1.
Yeah, so presumably there will be fodder for a part 2 at some juncture.
Which feels a bit...
You know what would be interesting? If they really wanted to do a cool way to do this part 1 and part 2. Part 1, the DC characters get transposed to Remnant. Part 2...
characters to DC Universe, right?
Yeah.
Which we... Okay, so there's also the thing of, like, honestly, I don't mind the Ruby style, because it's really... I think it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I wish... I wish there was a little more effort put into this in terms of like animation stuff.
Yeah, but asking modern day Hollywood to do effort is apparently like asking Moses to part the goddamn Red Sea.
It's not Hollywood.
Well, I
guess Hollywood.
They do the same fucking practices, so I'm not making the distinction.
Like, I honestly kind of wish they took some inspiration from Super Sons. Battle of the Super Sons.
Mm-hmm.
Movie, like that trailer we saw, and like how the animation looked and stuff, because it was very similar to this, but more stylized and more artistic.
Yeah.
Or artistic, not artistic.
Mm-hmm.
Although I feel like with that one there was a lot more time given to that, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
Although it had a few years. Granted, one of the years was during the pandemic, I believe. So,
although that's not an excuse for animation, frankly, because you can do animation from home.
It was a whole thing. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know everything behind the scenes, but yeah, this just I again I want to love this. It should be something I'm like jumping over the moon about. Like, okay, Avatar, Last Airbender, Foaming Mouth Guy. I should be doing that right now.
Yeah.
Anyone gets that? If anyone gets that, you get it. But I'm just like, I'm just looking at it like there should be more. More should have been done.
You're sitting there thinking, how could they possibly have fucked this up?
I think if anything, it weirdest thing is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I feel like it needed an outside writer because I believe it was the writers of RWBY that worked on this, but I believe it needed someone outside of both RWBY and maybe even DC to write this. I just okay.
Crescent Rose.
Crescent Rose. Okay, something's not right here.
Sorry, my phone glitched out for some reason.
I also think it was kind of on my end too.
What was it? Because I don't know what happened to StreamYard on my end. It was just like I was literally looking at the chat for a second, and then all of a sudden, nope.
Yeah, I think it's just been because we've been going on for so long too.
Maybe. Anyway, Crescent Rose.
Well, I was gonna point out. Why the fuck does the Flash have some type of weapon in his hand?
I don't know.
Also, why does Clark have a fucking hammer?
Presumably because the power scaling differential. So he's trying to
give him something different because literally right next to him there is a girl, Nora Valkyrie, who is based off Thor, by the way, has a fucking hammer. By the way, it can also turn into a grenade launcher. Like, if you're gonna give these characters weapons, at least make them fucking unique too. Like, shit, man.
Well, but isn't Nora Valkyrie isn't she the one with the strength semblance?
A lot of characters. It depends. She gets her power from being electrocuted. Like, it amps her up.
Ah, okay. So it's not the girl that has the basically blonde Hulk semblance.
No, it's Yang.
Okay. So I was going to defend it by maybe they're trying to be thematically consistent, give the strength characters hammers, but if that's not the case, then there goes my attempt to play devil's advocate.
Again, there's a weird power scaling thing. I'm just
See, this is why I'm obsessed about world building and shit, because if you can't make it logically make sense in universe, then no amount of thematic gobbledygook is going to make it okay out of universe.
right. I just
Yep, I can feel you wanting to. I can feel you doing what I do in my head, which is normally I play the clip from History of Violence. How do you fuck that up? How do you fuck that up?
honestly, if anything, if we want to play with Dalton's line thing and thematic, give him like gauntlets because Yang uses like these gauntlets that can be turned that with punches can be used as shotguns as well.
Yeah, that would be consistent. Give the two strength-based characters the strength-based weapon.
Well, okay, there are a lot. Semblances have various different things, but see the thing about semblances are they are effectively personalized superpowers.
Yeah.
Which gives a lot of variation, mind you, but still, like, no one ever really does much with the fucking. I'm not gonna talk about that. I don't want to go on a rant.
The world building is bad, and you should feel bad. Basically, is what he's about to do.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't the greatest. I'm not gonna lie. You know what? Brass knuckles could have worked. I don't think anyone in Ruby has brass knuckles. Like they have like those things attached to the what's the top of the hand called?
The top of the hand. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I've never thought to think of what the back of the hand is called.
Okay, let's just call it the back of the hand. Like on the back of the hand, there's like this plate with like claws on them. But I've never seen anyone have like brass knuckles. Since you meant strength-based brass knuckles. Honestly,
That'd be cool.
Flash, I mean, there's a character in Ruby proper that has shotgun legs. Like gun boots. Since Flash uses his legs all the time, attach weapons there.
Yeah, speedster. Ergo, he's a runner. Give him the running based power or weapon. And once again, we wind up in the thing that me and Brainstormer wind up saying to each other all the time, which is it's not that we're super smart or that we put an inordinate amount of work into this. These ideas literally took 5 like we literally thought of these ideas in real time, and they are still more consistent than the ideas that they actually went with.
Okay,
which is not a reflection of us being super smart. It's a reflection of the writers published their first draft and didn't take the 5 extra minutes to make things make sense that they should have.
Okay, giant turtle, some sort of gauntlet / brass knuckles, etc. But instead of a ranged weapon, it's a grappling thing to pull him forward, so he flies forward with his fist outstretched. Yeah, I mean, like they don't always like a weapon's secondary form in Ruby doesn't have to be a gun.
Yeah, it could have been. What are those like? Not nets, but like the like rope things that you'll see in ninja movies where they'll throw it and it'll like wrap around somebody or wrap around somebody's legs or whatever.
You mean a rope dart or?
I don't know if that's what they're called or not, but
Or are
like
you talking lasso? Are you talking like a lasso?
no, no, it's like a straight piece of rope that has like two balls on the end, and you throw it, and it
Bolo.
like coils around them.
Bolo.
Thank you. The secondary form could be a bolo.
Yeah. Although that seems like more of a Batman weapon, to be fair.
I mean, sure, but then again, most of the time in the DC universe, secondary weapons aren't really a thing. So having Superman's brass knuckles turn into a bolo would be cool.
Okay. For the record, season 5 is kind of considered by the fans of RWBY considered the worst season. Mainly because nothing happens for the whole 13 episodes.
Well, at least they have a normal series length at least, or
Okay.
season length.
Actually, let me rephrase that. Basically, they do the thing of like something happens in the beginning, middling, just bullshit, monotony in for. At most, there's like 5.
Oh, it's padding.
Yeah, 5 episodes you have to watch out of the whole fucking season. Maybe even less.
Aha.
I mean, there's some good moments in some of the seasons after season 5, but it sort of gets bogged down when they just keep backpedaling on interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned this Stone before, and feel free to disagree with me, Dragon Pearl, if you want. But it's an issue I've kind of noticed is when they introduce an interesting concept, like that introduces like kind of morally gray stuff, they always backpedal it to be black or white. You know, where the main characters are in the right and who disagree with them is in the wrong. Like there's no debate. There's nothing there. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Anyway.
Crescent Rose.
Crescent Rose.
We fight.
You order.
Honestly, I think we should call it there and save the Shazam trailer for next time.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I should have been in bed like 2 hours ago. So, yeah, kind of shame we don't end on something positive. Yeah. So I guess with that, folks, I will say goodbye, adios, aloha, abidase, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Fuck off.